Good morning, Murder Church. Get in here. Get in your pews. Ready to rock and roll. Sunday morning. Episode 74 of the Phil Spector Hollywood Murder Trial. We've almost made it to 75 and we'll finally get a thumbnail change. We're about to get in here and get her started. Thanks a lot for sharing this out for the fine folks that did on the old X Machine, Seeking Justice, Shelly. I see you guys. Also in the Discords. Appreciate that also, Shelly. And any Discords anybody else may be lurking in, give it the old share and on any socials. And hit the like. That helps us out here at Publicly Buzzed inside the Murder Church. We're going to be hanging out here for just a little bit this morning. And yeah, let's go. We got a wheel ready to rock and roll also.
Let's rock.
There we go. We've made it. So somehow, I'm imagining Friday night. I don't know how I did this. I deleted one of my scenes here in the OBS studio, whatever you want to call this. So that was what I was doing right before this. I had to make this. So I've lost actually all the Phil Spector banners and the ghoul, which I can find them again in my shit. So it may take a minute, but it's annoying, that's for sure. So, but yeah, I figured it out. We got it on here. We're about to rock and roll either way. Again, thanks everyone for coming in. Had a really good time on Friday, on Feral Friday with a bunch of cool people. Had Joe Schmo on here, Elise on here, Miss Shorty, Salty Sleuth. We had a really good time watching a classic film, Zombie, from 1979. Incredible movie. Anybody that likes horror movies especially would probably get a kick out of it. It was fun. We had a really good time. This Friday, I'm excited. We're going to be bringing Missy Mayhem on here. I was on her show last Saturday watching a film. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that. It should be fun. Missy rules. Missy's been a part of the Buzz Nation for a long-ass time now, and I know she does a lot of work in these true crime streets for a lot of higher-up folks. So, but all the fine folks in the chat right now, I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you all so much. I see Sinead already coming through and helping us out here with a... Oh, shit, let me get it. Hold on. I got to get these on here so we can look at them. Thank you very much, Sinead. This is all the way from Ireland. $5.99. That's $6, ladies and gentlemen. Coming all the way from Ireland. Thank you, Sinead. I appreciate that. We do have a new wheel rolling right now as of Friday night. Thanks to... Who was the last person on that thing? Who started out the new wheel? New Will will start out by Tasha on Friday night. So yeah, Sinead. Awesome. We're going to get you right here, right next to Tasha. And again, I really appreciate the hell out of that. So we are 2 names on a new wheel, but already have a wheel ready to rock and roll. I've just got to get her filled out. That will happen today. We're starting out here this morning with an emergency room nurse named Pauline Rosenfield. And we're going to be with her for about an hour and a half to start the day out. So, but yeah, Sinead, thank you so much. Let me give you a little bit of love to start that son of a bitch out with. Well, you'll get Holly's song. Sorry about that, Holly. But first of all, I've also got to hit the bells. I've also got to hit the bells because we are in church. Boom. Boom. What's up, Red Metal? New name in here. Love to see it. Thanks for coming through. Let's see who else hanging out in the chat this morning. Besides Sinead, Red Metal, Teresa Lemaster, Shelly's coming through here doing a lot of work modding. I really appreciate that, Shelly. Thank you so much. Absolute G around these parts. Oasis Cat, Micah. We got the crew in here. Bonnie Bailey, good to see you. Hope you're doing well, Bonnie. Simi Sharp's coming through this morning. Love to see it. Mike is in the house. Motion to Scream. Love to see it. All the fine folks. All the Buzz Nation coming through. And if you are new here, and maybe you found me because of one of the guests from last week, whether that be Bob or, hey, Tina, good morning. Whether that Lamastier, I'm not sure if that's going to help me. I'm kind of retarded. But yeah, if you're here because of one of my awesome guests from last week, whether that be Bob Mata or any of the people that I just mentioned, one thing that we do on Tuesday nights, ladies and gentlemen, is a book club, the Buzz Nation Book Club. Every Tuesday night after our regular scheduled programming, we go to the book club, which is a members-only show that we are currently reading the book The Stranger Beside Me, which is a Ted Bundy book written by Ann Rule, a lady that worked with Ted Bundy at a crisis call center in 1972. And we're about a little over a quarter of the way through this right now. If you're sitting there going, I just can't jump in the middle of this book, we actually have really detailed notes laid out in the members-only shows. I lay them out thoroughly. I write them out as I listen to these. We do 2 chapters a week. We're about to be going into chapter 14 and 15, if I'm not mistaken. And every Tuesday night, we go through them and we talk about them in chat. But the only way to do that is to become a member here at the Buzz Nation. So I really appreciate everyone that's come through. A lot of fine folks. Let's get her started this morning. Let's see what the hell's going on. So try to get wake.
Quiet, please. Cell phones off.
All right, back on the record. All parties are present with the exception of the jurors and the alternate. We have remaining the last issue before we move forward this afternoon. Not the last issue, the last issue for right now. I know. And that has to do with whether or not the people can call, what's the name of the witness, please? Deborah Robitaille in rebuttal. I've taken a look at the cases that were cited, both
of course, the will,
Mr.
Sinead just got on a will. The best way to do that, folks, is if you do become a member, if you do send out supers, but also Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo are all wide open. Also, I think I've got a donation bar. You can kind of see it there. Just if anybody does need a peek at that. But thank y'all so much.
Renon's papers, or he signed the thing, as well as the people's
I need to get woke up.
memo that they gave me this morning, and I've found some other cases which I think are more on point, but it also causes me to make certain inquiries. I need to ask the people why Ms. Robitaille was not called in your case in chief.
Your Honor, at the time that we found out that Ms. Robitaille even existed, we had already begun the case. We had, basically it comes down to a matter of preparedness and whether or not we were comfortable at the point at which we found out who she was and where she was and what she might have to offer, where we were on our case in chief. We had already gone through, if the court recalls, we'd gone through the 4 1101B witnesses right at the outset, right at the beginning of the case, and that's sort of how we blueprinted our case. We wanted to move from one point to the next, and we were pretty successful in doing that with very little interruption with our witnesses. There was information that we needed to vet with Ms. Robitaille. Nobody had talked to her. She lived out of the state, across the country, on the Atlantic seaboard. I didn't have a chance to meet her, never talked to her on the phone. We sent an investigator out to talk to her. By the time we got the report back from the investigator, we were well into our 1101B case and basically finishing with that area and moving on to other areas. There was some information in the report that we needed to explore and expound on. During that time, we asked the court preliminarily, is this someone that you would allow, because it was relatively late discovery, is this someone that you would consider allowing us to call? And you found her to be relevant. That notwithstanding, we felt like under cross-examination there was still information that we needed to vet, that being, had she spoken to any media outlets? If she had, what had she said? Where are the interviews, et cetera, et cetera. There's no way that I was going to put her on, or that Mr. Dixon was going to put her on without fully vetting that. By the time that was done, we had basically gone through the lion's share of our case. It was our determination at that point. We're happy with the case the way it had come out. We're happy with the case the way it sat as a package. We would just leave it for what it was. The defense then put on their case. And that answers the question as to why we didn't put her on in our case in chief, knowing full well that we were relatively, by the end of the case and by the beginning of the defense case, we're getting comfortable with who she was, what she said, and what potential cross-examination she may be vulnerable to.
Write these down.
Now the defense case is put on, and the attack is almost immediate on one of the 1101B witnesses. That attack is an attack not just on Melissa Grosvenor, but on all the 1101B witnesses. Each one of them was attacked in their own way on cross-examination, but then when you get to the defense case in chief, that's when the real ammunition was fired at the 1101B witness, Melissa Grosvenor. The argument that the defense is reasonably going to make is if this woman is lying, if she made it up, then you can assume that the others are in it for the same purpose. That argument is substantially rebutted by mere numbers. The fact that Deborah Robitaille is yet another independent witness who has experienced almost identical circumstances as the four
One down.
that the jury has already heard about will undermine or rebut that argument. That's why we asked to use her in rebuttal, and that's why we didn't use her in our case in chief.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bruno?
I'm going to have to dispute the timing aspect of this because we were provided a interview report dated March 22nd, March 29th, that preceded even the jury selection. We filed a motion to exclude her testimony based on several reasons, late discovery, cumulative, etc., which was litigated before the jury was sworn. So this isn't a situation where they found out about her after the case had begun, after their case had begun. That simply is not the case. They knew about her at least a month before the jury selection even began.
All right, hold on.
The attack, if you want to call it that, on Melissa Grosvenor was that Melissa Grosvenor did some dishonest things in and of herself.
Well, and then because of that, she's to be disbelieved in her testimony.
It's to discredit her testimony, but that doesn't mean that if Grosvenor had been at the judge's house when she stole the plaque, or if she'd been at the bank when she stole the money, and could say something about Pileggi, if Robitaille had been familiar with Grosvenor, that would be rebuttal to that specific attack. A generalized rebuttal is not rebuttal. I mean, the case Carter, the seminal case on this, says that
Carter's not the seminal case anymore. It's an important case. It's not the seminal case.
well, it's seminal in the sense that it was one of the first expositions.
Okay.
Not
Got a new video dropping today on the second channel, and I'm thinking about doing a wrestling live stream tonight on that channel as well. Some old 80s wrestling.
That is the last word. I mean, this is not proper rebuttal. I mean, this is kind of almost like Potter Stewart said about pornography or obscenity. You know it when you see it. You know
There we go.
that
Got our
this was
banners
held
back.
back for this very purpose, to have
see if we can get
undue
our
emphasis
rule back.
placed on it. This is a tactical decision. This is nothing other than a tactical decision, and I think that it's improper to offer it at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. I'm prepared to rule. There are some recent cases, or several cases since Carter, which was decided in 1957. There's two fairly recent cases from the California Supreme Court, People versus Young, which is found at 34 Cal 4th, 1149, and a case that is very close to being on point. Nothing is ever directly on point, or rarely, which is People versus Gates, which is an earlier case, a case from 87, 43 Cal 3rd, 1168, and Gates actually is very, very close to the
There it
facts of
is.
this case, having to
The
do with
ghoul has
one.
returned. He's taking over the stream, ladies and gentlemen. Now on Murder Church, Phil Spector beyond the grave. Ladies and gentlemen, the ghoul has entered the arena. He has returned. I don't know where to put him. We'll put him right here for random observation.
The use of rebuttal to corroborate certain witnesses, even though that witness could have been called
Yo,
in the
Salty,
people's
welcome in
case
here.
in
Good
chief.
morning.
And also, Gates is important because it found that
Welcome in all the
whether you
fine
call it
folks
rebuttal
this morning.
or
Appreciate it.
on the particular facts of this case, and it's actually citing another case called People versus Lanphier at 26 Cal 3rd, 814.
Oh, this
and
dude
that's
rules
LA.
red metal. Yeah. Oh, shit. Hold on. Let me fix that. There we go. Let me get these. Should also let me move that. Everything's out of position because I'm actually going to move this too. Everything is making me go crazy this morning. How about that? I don't know. I don't like that either because that's where I need to put the witnesses and stuff. But hold on. Hold on, red metal. Red metal. I want to get you up here. I want to get you inside so we can read your stuff. At least get you up top here. How about that? Let's shrink this just a little bit. Do a little house maintenance here in real time. There we go. That looks pretty slick. But I wanted to address that. Yeah, it will be cool to see what it looks like with a fair judge. I can tell already he looks like a lot more fair judge. And I guess you're talking about Judge Bev from the Karen Reed trial. Yeah, Judge Diehard is what our nickname is for this guy, Larry Fiddler. my favorite judge, period. I mean, I like some judges. I've seen some that I like, and I see a lot more than I dislike, just to be quite honest. But he has been the fairest one I've seen yet. Of course, this is the only trial I've seen. I haven't seen anything other than this insanely popular Hollywood, all lights and cameras are on this guy, so maybe he's acting a different way, I guess I could put that out there and I could see something else, but I like him.
P-H-E-A-R. It can also be considered case in chief put on out of order. And things that I have to look at in this matter, and you have mentioned some of them as to what I'm looking for when the people seek to call a witness that could have been called in an earlier time, certainly that was possible in this case, is whether or not, one, the people are calling the witness to gain an unfair advantage, which you've argued they have. I don't agree with that. Given the nature of that particular evidence,
What's up,
there are
Jeannie?
4 witnesses who've already testified.
Dave. Okay, Dave. I know that you sent me some information through Big Cartel, what shirt, and all your information. If you could send another email or something, I can't find that in my Gmail when I try to search Dave or anything like that. Please get that to me. I'm going to get your shirt out this week. I know that's taking a minute, but yeah, publiclybuzzed@gmail.com, Dave. I've got you here on my list to get an address, a shirt size, which shirt, and that should be good. Thank you so much.
Testified under 1101B to say that one more witness
Good morning, Dave.
would give
Dave
it
also.
undue emphasis, and it's not going to be the last word. We know
So
that you haven't even
Micah,
rested
that's
your
how you
case
get
yet.
right there. I know I'm going a little crazy. I'm all over the place this morning. Forgive me. I try to fix some stuff on the stream also. But Micah, boom. Offertory to the murder church. I've never heard that word in my life. Offertory. I hope I'm saying that correctly, but I get it. Yes, thank you for the offering. Boom. Micah coming through. Let's fucking go, son.
You gotta fight for
Coming
your
in
right.
strong.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
All right, Micah. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate the hell out of that. That's going to get us lined right up. We got 3 names on that wheel already starting us out. All the fine folks. And if people don't know what that last emoji is there behind Murder Church and Hell Yeah, that's a Navy grog. That is Phil Spector's favorite drink of choice when he goes out to the bar, when he gets a little wild, when he starts waving guns around and putting guns in ladies' faces. That's what that is. He's been having a few too many Navy grogs. So thank you, Dave. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, and I'm going to get your shirt out this week. Salty. I had a great time, too. It was super duper fun. I'm glad everyone enjoyed the film.
Yeah. The witness, if she testifies, will testify today. So I don't think there is undue emphasis. Certainly there is some emphasis. Another issue that the court has to consider is whether or not, one of the things I have to be concerned with is to ensure the presentation of evidence is orderly.
Gambino. Nope, it is not a Moscow Mule. It is a Navy grog, which I'd never heard about. BGOG coming through also, which I had never heard about until this trial started. So, but yeah, and I don't think I would ever have it. We looked it up one day what it was. It sounds a little weird, man. You got some fucking strange shit in there.
And avoids confusion of the jury.
Shit. If it's all the rums, maybe I'm changing my mind real quick. But I remember, wasn't there some kind of weird spices that you make it with? I maybe remember
where we are right now. That can't possibly be argued. We're not even sure. I mean, I know where we're at. We're in rebuttal of a defense case that hasn't rested. And to some degree, we're in rebuttal as well. So to say that it affects the orderly presentation, not under the facts of this case. And perhaps the most important one is to avoid unfair surprise of the defendant from confrontation with crucial evidence late in the trial. There is no surprise. You've known that this witness existed. You know that there was a chance that she would be called, as you said, back in March of this year. The witness and her testimony are not a surprise. Whether you call this, and nobody's really calling it part of the case in chief out of order, because I don't think that would be appropriate given the presentation the parties have made as to why this witness is being called. But I do believe that this does properly qualify as rebuttal evidence, clearly, even though it has come in cross-examination. And that issue has been raised, though not squarely decided before, as to whether the impeachment comes by way of witnesses in the case in chief or cross-examination. Clearly, this part of the argument comes from cross-examination, which is that through cross-examination you have impeached Melissa Grosvenor as well as other witnesses, basically. I mean, the cross-examination is to show that they're being untruthful.
Yo,
that they all
factual
have
lie, get in here.
reasons for not testifying truthfully, that they've made the story
Got a
up
wheel
for
to
one
come
reason or
still,
the other,
guys.
and I think that applies to each of the 1101B witnesses that has been presented. There are, although they are not perhaps as large as some of the other reasons, there are reasons. It does tend to, you did present witnesses that impeach Melissa Grosvenor, and again, this tends to show that Melissa Grosvenor and the other 1101B witnesses were telling the truth, that there's a series of witnesses, and to say there's strength in numbers, that is a truism. Indeed, there is another very slight. Are you planning on, I need to, before I make this part of my ruling, you indicated you wanted to go into the relationship with the individuals who either own or are investors in the backstage? Yes, as slight as that may be, that is a legitimate reason. There is a suggestion that Pumpkin Pie, whether the jury finds that to be true or not, is testifying because of a business relationship she has and the relationship of certain individuals in that business with Mr. Spector. For all those reasons, I find that, especially under the reasoning of Young and Gates, that this is appropriate rebuttal. It does not fall within the prohibition of the Carter case. In fact, the Carter case is mentioned often in both Young and Gates, and therefore I will allow that witness to testify. So at this point, are you ready to proceed with that or some other witness?
Another witness, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Before we call that other witness, may I offer a well, I should do it in front of the jury. May I offer a very quick stipulation? It's just as to the sign. Mr. Rosen and I have already talked about it.
Certainly.
We'll just do it once the jury comes in, and then we'll call the first one.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring in the jurors.
Is that okay?
All right, the jurors and the alternates are now present. Do you have a stipulation you want to offer, Mr. Jackson?
We do, Your Honor.
Sorry, Miss
This will
Jackson.
make a little bit more sense. I have an 8.5 by 11.
For real. Mr. Jackson gonna do his thing. Let you know right now what it is. He's gonna run this courtroom. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson. Oh.
A document bearing two photographs, A and B. I'd like to have this marked as people's next in order. I think it's 184.
It is 184.
I'll just place that on the overhead.
184.
184. And I would simply
They
offer
got it
Mr.
all
Rosen the
right.
following stipulation. Mr. Rosen, will you stipulate that the sign as it appears in photograph A and B of People's 184 is as it appeared on February 3rd, 2003, and it no longer appears that way?
Out of whack.
Well, my eyes aren't that good.
It's right here. It reads Pyrenees Castle.
No, I can read B. My eyes aren't quite as good to read A, but I can see it here on the Elmo. And yes, I'll stipulate.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that, I have nothing further.
Do you have another witness?
Yes, we do, Your Honor.
So we got hearts. We got to move our hearts.
Called Pauline Rosenfield.
Okay.
Be over here behind old Phil. There we go. We're moving and shaking now. Holy shit. Everybody in here this morning. Thank y'all so much. We got a full house. Holy shit. Really appreciate it, guys. Still rolling through. See old J Money coming through here this morning. Thanks, J Money. Appreciate it. Like I said, we do already have a wheel ready to go. I just got to get that thing ready to rock and roll. Navy Grog from Trader Vic's in Portland or came in pewter mugs. Never heard of pewter mugs. Very deadly. Contains 151 Bacardi. That very deadly is an understatement. After old Phil Spector consumes enough of these things, he's comfortable with putting a gun in multiple women's faces and or mouths, allegedly, and possibly killing them. Again, Lana Clarkson.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause and opinion before this court
We got a nurse
shall be
right
the
now,
truth,
though, so-
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
See what she's been talking about.
Please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
My name is Pauline Rosenfield. It's Pauline Rosenfield.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Could you
pull that microphone all the way back? There you go.
Thank you for coming, and I think you've been waiting for a little while, so thank you for that, too. Could you tell us what you currently do for a living?
I'm a registered nurse at Cedars-Sinai, and I work in the emergency department, and my position is pre-hospital care coordinator, which essentially is a liaison between the mobile intensive care nurses and the paramedics that service our area. I essentially oversee the QI program there, the continuing education program, and just make sure everything runs smoothly.
There was a lot in that answer, so let me ask you.
Okay.
QI, what's that? QI program.
Okay. Quality improvement.
Okay.
We have certain programs that
That's
that we do to make sure that whatever the
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, Linda Kinney Bodden has her own YouTube channel. I know she's deep inside of the Karen Reed trial right now. But yeah, this is where you can see Alan Jackson, Karen Reed's current defense attorney, head defense attorney against Linda Kinney Bodden, who, again, is covering the trial pretty thoroughly back from 2007.
The paramedics do in the field and the MICNs do in the emergency room as far as pre-hospital care goes, that it's all done correctly via DHS guidelines.
I was going to welcome you to this trial. You speak as fast as everybody else does. We don't get any slow talkers.
I'll slow down.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Appreciate it.
Let me ask you another question. I think a couple times in that answer, you used the term MICN. Is that correct?
Correct.
What is that?
MICN is Mobile Intensive Care Nurse.
And what does that mean?
This is a nurse, a registered nurse in the emergency department who has been specially trained to do online medical control with the paramedics in the field, essentially oversees treatment of patients in the field according to the guidelines set by Department of Health Services.
But you're employed by Cedars-Sinai.
Yes.
And you work, I think in that last answer, you mentioned the Department of Health
Department of Health Services.
Is that part of the County of Los Angeles?
Yes, it's LA County.
Before we go any farther, let me ask you briefly to outline for the jury your background, training, and experience for your present position.
Okay, I've been a registered
Will's
nurse
ready
for
to
30
go.
years. I've worked at Cedars for 30 years. I
We'll be
have
giving away some goodies
essentially
today.
started my career on a medical teaching floor for 3 years, went into the intensive care unit for about 3 years, then went to the emergency department, and I have been there now for 26 years, and have been the pre-hospital care coordinator for the last 5 years.
By pre-hospital care coordinator, do you...
Yo, Factual Lie coming through with this with the share from Shelley's post. Hell yeah, double sharing.
Are you a supervisor?
Yes.
And do you supervise other nurses who are MICN nurses?
Correct.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about that. First, how many other nurses do you supervise?
We have 43 RNs that have this certification of mobile intensive care nurse.
Tell us a little bit about that certification, which you have, correct?
Correct.
What does that certification mean? What's the purpose?
To become a mobile intensive care nurse, you need to have been a nurse in the emergency room for at least a year. You also have to take it's a development program which lasts about 2 months. It's a 48-hour program, and you learn essentially how to take care of the patient according to Department of Health Services policies and procedures. And you learn how to direct the paramedics in the field when it comes to taking care of patients.
By the way, at this time, do you know a nurse who works in that area at Cedars-Sinai by the name of Susan Levitt?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And is she one of the people that you supervise?
Yes, she is.
And does she have a distinctive accent?
Yes, she's Australian.
Okay.
It's very distinctive on the radio.
And is it true that each of the nurses that work for you in this area have a designated number that they use in this process that we're going to talk about, working with the paramedics in LA County?
Yes, when you become a mobile intensive care nurse, you are given a number that you use to put on the form after your name. This essentially says that you have passed the county test and that the county has certified you. So all of us have our own special number.
Your number is?
1619.
Okay, and Miss Nurse Levitt's?
Is
ACH, welcome in.
850.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about this program that you work in. You work for Cedars-Sinai, as you told us, but correct?
Correct.
But you also work in conjunction with the County of Los Angeles Health Services.
Correct.
And they're one of their...
Shit, Gabby coming through, throwing up the horns, $3 also. Thank you, Gabby, getting you on that thing. Good luck on the wheel. Thank you, Gabby, for coming through this morning. Good morning, good morning. Love to see it.
responsibilities that you work with is Los
Finest
Angeles
folks
paramedics
come through the
who work in the county.
publicly buzzed chats. I'm telling you right now.
Cedars has certain rescues, certain provider
Thank you so
agencies
much. What's the
assigned
four
to
names on
them.
that new will
We
already,
have LA
guys?
County, LA City, and Beverly Hills. And these paramedics bring their
Charlene,
patients to our
welcome in.
facility. So I essentially oversee the
Morning,
program
morning.
in the sense that I check all the base forms. I
Thank
make
you,
sure that the
Elisa's
treatment
cat.
and care
Appreciate
that was
that.
given to the patient by the paramedics is appropriate, and also by the MICNs.
Before you were a supervisor, did you actually do this job that we're going to talk about?
Well, not this particular job, but I was an MICN.
Okay. Where you work with paramedics?
Correct.
Okay. An MICN nurse, or
Breaking.
what would their
Someone has somehow gotten live footage from the morning murder church ritual. I'm not sure how this is leaked out. Oh my God, only we should know about this. Look at the little dog hanging out back here. Murder church ritual every morning, every Sunday morning right here.
job? For example,
I don't know what the
we're
hell's
going to
going on
talk
there.
about a specific day, December 24th of 2001,
Correct.
just before midnight, correct?
Correct.
You've looked at a number of forms, in fact, listened to a tape of, for want of a better word, paramedic run that your Nurse Lovett at Cedars-Sinai communicated with LA City Fire paramedics, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about that. You're familiar with the duties of a nurse in that situation directing paramedics?
Correct.
And what are those duties?
Well, once a run begins, the MICN gets on the radio and listens to the assessment done by the paramedics. And according to the assessment, the chief complaint, what's going on with the patient, she then determines what type of treatment that the patient needs. And then she works in conjunction with the paramedic, essentially getting any more information that she might need to go ahead with this treatment.
So in that situation, the paramedic is obviously with the patient,
Correct.
and the paramedic is relaying whatever they see, whatever injuries, whatever needs that the paramedic assesses to the nurse at Cedars-Sinai,
That's exactly what they do.
and asking for the hospital or the nurse's okay in administrating further medical aid.
That's correct.
Is there a term called base hospital?
Yes.
What does that mean?
A base hospital is a hospital that has been designated to direct advanced life support and care to patients in the pre-hospital setting, and this is all done according to the guidelines that have been set up by the DHS agency.
By Department of Health
Department of
Services?
Health Services.
Okay,
yes.
all right. And Cedars-Sinai, on the day we're talking about, was a base hospital, correct?
Yes, it is a base hospital.
And you mentioned that you know Nurse Susan Lovett, and you did at the time, December 24th, 2001. Pardon?
This is still laying a foundation for certain things. You may proceed.
You mentioned that you knew Nurse Lovett on the day we're talking about, December 24th of 01, correct?
Correct.
Were you familiar with her background, training, and experience? Was she one of these MCIN?
MICNs?
Yes, correct.
Yes, she has been an MICN. I can't tell you how many years, but it's been at least 6 or 7 years that she's been an MICN.
And in fact, you supervised her in that role?
Yes.
Okay. And she knew her role pretty well?
Yes, she did.
Okay. With the court's permission, I'm going to ask to put up People's 57 on the screen. All right. And I think you have a copy of this in front of you. Let's highlight, Sudie, please, the top third of it. I'm going to have to get out my glasses. Do you recognize this form?
Yes, this is a base hospital form. This is a universal form that all base hospitals use to record the information that the paramedic gives the MICN on the radio when they're actually doing a paramedic run.
And it's made out in the normal course of business at the hospital, correct?
Yes.
And when's it made out?
I'm sorry?
When is it done? When
It's actually done when the nurse is on the radio speaking to the paramedic.
While they're engaged in the run?
Yes, it's done concurrently with the run. She's writing as he's speaking, and she's recording all this information on this particular form.
And her job is to record the information correctly and truthfully at the time?
Correct.
Because this is an important document?
Yes.
Why?
It deals with patient care. Essentially, we have to determine what's going on with the patient in order to give the right care. And that's why essentially documenting is important, so we can go back and look at this and make sure that what we're doing in the field is appropriate.
In fact, do you understand that there is some kind of quality assurance unit that goes back and reviews some of this information from time to time?
I, as the pre-hospital care coordinator, review every form. I have to look at every form. That's part of my job, just to make sure that what has been done in the field is correct.
Now, in any given run, and when we talk about a run, we're talking about the time that the paramedics are with a patient from the time they pick them up until they get to the hospital, if that's where they're going, correct?
Yes.
Is that the term for a run?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
so
the case.
With respect to every run, is it fair to say that there are two separate ways to document the medical information in that run? One, the base hospital form that we're looking at, People's 57.
Yes.
And two, the radio transmission, if it's recorded.
Yes, and we record all of the transmissions between the medics and the MICNs.
When you say you do, is that Cedars-Sinai or is it the Department of Health Services?
It's Department of Health Services policy, and we do as well.
So every one of these runs is tape recorded and stored, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the same thing with People's 57, the base hospital form.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's briefly talk about this a little bit. As we look at it, well, first let me withdraw that and ask you this. You have the whole form in front of you. Someplace on the form, the nurse who was engaged was the MICN nurse at Cedars-Sinai, documented their identity on the form. Is that correct?
That's correct.
At the bottom of the form?
It's at the very bottom of the form.
And what nurse
Sweet
was
Dave, I got
handling
your
this?
email. Thanks,
This was
man.
Sue Lovett.
I'm going to mark you off
With
my list
the number
here.
that you gave us, N2850.
Get you going.
I
Tomorrow.
was into 850, yes.
Okay.
It's kind of cut off on this form.
Is there one
And
other?
anybody in the chat, if you do see NH Dude or Frog, let them know that I need some information, please.
As we look at the top portion of this form, People's 57, at the top right-hand corner of the document, I see a number that starts
Thank you,
with
Kathy,
BD.
for coming through. I
Could you tell
appreciate
us
it.
what that
Good
number
morning.
is?
This is the
Hope you and
sequence
Pumpkin
number.
are doing well.
And this is the number that the paramedics have on their form that they fill out. They give us this number over the radio. We put it on our form, and this is the number that connects the two essentially documents together, so we know we're talking about the same patient, since we do not use patient names.
So from this document, we don't know what the patient name is.
No.
Are you familiar with an LA Fire Department form 9902M?
Yes.
Okay. That form would show the name of the patient.
Yes, they do record the patient's name on the form.
But it also has the same
Oh, sweet.
BD
Thank you, Shirley. I
number.
appreciate
Yes, it's a
that.
sequence number. It's the same,
Thanks.
yes.
As we look at the top left-hand part of the document, we see a number, and I don't think it's cut off, 164259. What is that?
That's a hospital-given number. That just helps us essentially number our forms. So that's just strictly for the hospital.
Now, you said that's a hospital number for Cedars-Sinai.
Yes.
Is this, though, a Cedars-Sinai document or a Department of Health Services for the County of Los Angeles?
This is a Department of Health Services form that all the bases use to record information.
So no matter what hospital in Los Angeles County, they would use the same base hospital form.
Yes, they would.
But is it a policy of Cedars-Sinai in this program to use this form?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And in fact, you've checked and this form came from Cedars-Sinai, was filled out that day?
Yes. it did.
Okay. All right, well, let's try to go through this somewhat quickly. As we look at right below the hospital sequence number, we see the date, correct? And
That's
the
the
time?
date of the run, yes.
So as I suggested, December 24th of 2001?
Correct.
Now, there's a time on it, and we should talk about that. It says 23:35 military time,
Yes,
right?
we use military time, and that is the time that the run actually started. The transmission went on between the paramedic and the MICN.
Okay, so this is the time that the paramedic got on the radio and started talking to the hospital.
Yes,
Okay, so that would have been 11:35 our time,
correct.
PM.
PM, yes.
Okay. All right, and then as we go across,
There we go.
we see some other numbers.
happy with that
Next one
layout.
over, it says RF 27.
That's City
RA.
City Rescue 27.
All right, and that would have been the LA Fire Department rig that the paramedic was in, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Go over a little farther, and we have the age and the sex and the weight of the patient, correct?
Yeah, that's all basic information that we get for every patient, yes,
Right, and that would have been given by
by the paramedics.
paramedic to your nurse at Cedars-Sinai.
That's correct.
And she would have written it down right at the time.
Right,
Like all this other information.
correct.
Okay. And then the last one
Oh,
on
it's still
that
low.
section, it says hospital code, and then it indicates radios checked.
Right, the transmission came across on our paramedic radio versus a phone line. We have both ways of communication, and this was a radio call.
So the paramedics have two options. One, to use a radio from their paramedic rig.
Yes,
They also could get on a landline or even a cell phone, I imagine.
right,
Okay. So we know this was a radio transmission.
this was a radio transmission.
And as you've told us, Cedars-Sinai, as a matter of policy,
Thanks, Dave. I
Cape
got
Records
that. Appreciate
keeps
that. I'm gonna
these
get you going this
radio
week.
transmissions.
Yes, we do.
Going down to the next section, chief complaint, and from then on to the next few lines, could you tell us what that's all about?
Sure. This essentially, the chief complaint code is a code we use to describe the injury. BR essentially means blunt fracture, and it describes that the patient had a blunt fracture, and as you continue on reading, she describes essentially what actually happened. The patient fell on the carpeting while dancing, had bilateral wrist deformities, meaning that both wrists had injuries to them. A good capillary refill pre and post splinting. She's just essentially identifying the fact that the patient had a good pulse and had good color and sensation to the extremity pre and post splinting. We want to make sure that that occurs. Again, let's see, asthma is her medical history. She's on albuterol, and let's see, the patient's allergic to penicillin and sulfa. That's a definition, or that's abbreviation for sulfa. And then up above there is a no ETOH designation there, which means no alcohol. This essentially is a pertinent negative that oftentimes we will document, especially in a case like this when you have someone with fractured bones. We're always looking to hopefully medicate them if we can in the field, and this would be a parameter for essentially being able to medicate someone.
And again, this is all information that Nurse Susan Lovett would have written down in response to what the paramedic was telling her over the radio. Is
That's
that correct?
correct.
And you mentioned no alcohol in light of the treatment. I'm going to have a few more questions about that, but I think we'll come back to that and we'll move on here. Looking at the next line down, do you see where it says conscious?
Yes.
What's this box all about, and what information would have come to Nurse Lovett to make her fill out the form?
Okay, essentially, we are identifying the level of consciousness of the patient, and it's documented here that the patient was alert and oriented, meaning the patient was alert and oriented to time, place, and person. And then if you go across the form, you'll see something that says GCS, and there's a number there, 465, and this also identifies that the patient is alert and oriented. It's a scale that we use for essentially identifying the state of consciousness of a patient.
Well, with respect to those two boxes, consciousness and then the GCS, I assume, and tell me if I'm wrong, that there are different levels of consciousness
Yes,
and
there are.
alertness.
Yes.
What does this form, People's 57, tell you about this patient on this day, at least as far as what the paramedic told Nurse Lovett?
Essentially, it says that the patient is completely awake, alert, oriented, and has essentially all their senses about him.
Okay. Sudie, can we go to the bottom half of the form?
Whoa, Joe. That's crazy.
And I'll have a couple more questions. At the top, now we're looking at the bottom half.
Welcome in, Red Metal. Welcome in. You will get all the pamphlets in the mail, and then you will actually get a van that arrives, and you will be taken late at night. Somebody will come in and drop a hood over your head, throw you into a van, take you to an undisclosed place, and then you will be completely indoctrinated into the murder church. Welcome the hell in here. Get in here. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Welcome to the party, pal.
of People's 57, the base hospital form that we've been talking about. And as we see it here, we're seeing the bottom half, but at the top of that bottom half, or sort of in the middle, we see split.
Well, let's get, you know, we did have a lot of late stragglers coming through. We'll do another round of bells. Let's go. Bring them through. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Murder Church. We got a will to spin here in about an hour. We still got an hour left of this witness, and after that, we're going to get a will going. Thanks, everyone, for coming in this morning. I appreciate it. New folks, love it.
Splint both. Do you see where that is?
Right.
Okay, tell us what information is there that the paramedic told the nurse over the radio.
Okay. Essentially, the paramedics went ahead and used splints to stabilize the injuries, which apparently were on both of her extremities, her wrists. Also, the nurse gave an order for morphine, 5 to 10 milligrams to titrate IV push. This essentially is giving the patient medication to help the pain control. And
Kathy Helper coming through the Venmo machine with a $4.20 offering, passing the plate for Pastor Steve. Kathy, I really appreciate the shit out of that. And everyone already knows we're already working on another will. We have one that's going to be ready to rock and roll in about an hour, just like I said, after this witness. But in the meantime, we're gaining traction on another will, and that's 5 fine folks so far. So thank you so much, Kathy.
And titration means that the medication is given to the patient according to pain.
Love it.
So as little as 5, as much as 10 could be given.
Very welcoming. The best
Push,
chat.
what does that mean?
On YouTube, I think.
Push. It means that the medication, what we do is we'll put a little catheter into the vein. It's a little IV site, and the medication is pushed right into that catheter, and that's considered IV push.
Well, Mr. Jackson's lent me his pointer here, so maybe we can quickly go through the rest of this, and I'm going to point. At the next level down, right where I'm pointing now, there's a check next to fracture, and then on the other side of the form, same area, it says fall. Tell us what that's about.
This is the trauma section of the base hospital form. It identifies that the patient had a blunt injury and had a fracture, so that's what the BR means, blunt fracture. Then if you move across, it says mechanism of injury, and this tells you how the patient sustained the injury, and it's from a fall. That's what the FA is.
Okay, fine. And then last, just about last, at least with respect to the form, down here in the bottom left-hand corner, it says time clear, and that has a time in it, correct?
Yes.
And that is?
This is the time that the paramedic and the MICN actually finished their communication, the transmission ended, and that is the time 23:38.
So all of this took just 3 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. And then right at the bottom, it's a little bit cut off. Down in this area, there's the number that we talked about for Nurse Lovett, N2850, correct?
That's right. That's where her name goes.
All right. Your Honor, with the court's permission, it's only 3 minutes. I'd like to play 170 and ask her to identify the voices.
For identification purposes, yes.
We have the transcripts. The jurors have already listened to it. If you like, I hand them out.
I don't think it's necessary.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, whose voices are you attempting to have her establish?
Nurse Lovett.
As soon as Nurse Lovett talks, if she can ID it, that's all she needs to do.
Well, it's only if you want me to say this to the bench, I will. But there is
Jay Money coming through also. The fine folks this morning that's coming through. I cannot tell you how happy I am. Thank you. Jay Money getting on the board with a $3 holler through the Cash App. Holy cow, guys. Yeah, getting us right in there on another will early. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to give him a classic wrestling one. Hold on. There you go, Jay. Thanks, buddy.
For her medical opinion.
If she needs to listen to that to interpret it or to give an opinion, that's fine.
Young Black Economist, what's up? Welcome back. You ain't wrong. Speaking of which, nice.
27, I copy you loud and clear.
You fit right on in.
Simplest number is Bravo David.
We'll play the number one call. It's coming. You don't know when it's coming, but it's coming. Do we even have the smoke over here? Dude,
3-1. We're called to the home of a 39-year-old female, 140 pounds, who we find awake, alert, oriented ×4. Patient was dancing on a carpet, slipped, fell, and fractured both her wrists. We have significant deformity.
Oh, shit. Okay, yeah, this is the call from when Lana Clarkson broke her wrist. Holy shit.
Wrist and not as bad on the left. We have the patient loaded in the back of the rescue at this time. We have both wrists splinted. Blood pressure 130 by palpation. Pulse is 80 and regular. Respiratory rate 20. Clear bilaterally with good tidal volume. No other significant trauma. No neck pain, no back pain, no shortness of breath, no chest pain, nothing like that. We do have good capillary refill and pulses distally.
Couldn't even imagine breaking, like, your ankles or your wrists. I had a buddy that had a wife that broke both of her ankles. She fell off, like, the bottom step of the porch and twisted both of those things and broke them both. One was worse than the other, but holy crap. And she was holding a baby when it happened and managed to hold the baby, and the baby didn't get hurt, which shows, you know, the motherly instinct, I guess, even when you're falling with broken fucking ankles. But, dude, I'll never forget just having conversations with somebody I know personally and how miserable that sounded. But broken wrist also.
Both fractures, pre and post splinting of both of them. Patient is in a significant amount of pain, and due to not having any other trauma on our patient, we were wondering if we could get an order for some morphine.
Yeah, you can hear her screaming back there.
She has a history of
Hey, welcome in here, don't dox me. Never. We ain't doxing nobody around her.
asthma, and she is allergic to penicillin and sulfa, and she takes albuterol for her asthma. No other history, meds, or allergies, and we have a saline lock established at this time, O2 and the splint, and we're standing by. Rescue 27, I copy your report. I understand you've got both wrists splintered right now, and you do have a saline lock in this patient. Go ahead and push 5 milligrams of morphine IV on her. You can in fact give her up to 10 milligrams if you really want to. This patient hasn't been drinking alcohol, has she? Over. She denies any alcohol consumption at this time, and she does not appear to be under any influence. We both slipped on the same rug. It's a very dangerous rug, so I don't think that was a factor at all.
Morning Gambies.
Copy 5 to 10 milligrams of morphine, and
That's as much as I need for right now, if that's
Do
satisfactory.
you wish the rest of it played for any purpose?
The ankle,
Yes.
the knees.
We stopped at the,
I know, I want to hold on. If the defense wants the whole thing played,
Okay,
I'll play
that's
it. I want to
fine.
see.
Jesus, everybody in the chat had broken ankles? Jesus Christ, guys, that's crazy. Horrible.
I don't see the need to request the appointment.
The rest of it, I'm satisfied with what we have. Thank you. You may proceed.
all right, thank you, Your Honor. So, ma'am, you've just heard us play People's 170. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
You've heard that tape transmission before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, in fact, you've read the transcript,
Yes, I have.
and you have a copy in front of you?
I do.
First, we hear really 3 voices, but for the most part, 2 voices in that tape radio transmission. Do you recognize either one?
I recognize the nurse.
Damn, no broken bones, but almost severed her toe. Shit, the only broken bone, I think I might have had like a, you know, when you stub a toe really badly, and ain't shit you can really do. Maybe a little toe broke, who knows? But the one thing I did for sure have broken was a broken wrist when I was a kid.
And the nurse is?
Got pushed into a ditch, wrestling, of course. I turned around on this guy, he just shoves me, and I landed like right on top of my freaking wrist.
Sue Lovett.
Okay. Who was working under your supervision at that time?
Yes.
Welcome in.
Now I'd like to invite your attention, maybe it's easier by doing so
safe.
with the transcript, to page 4.
You're going to the Magic Kingdom. I was just looking at the Disney, like what it costs for one day for a family of 5 to go to Disney. Oh my God. Holy shit. I would never be able to do anything like that and feel good about myself. Holy crap. But have fun. It looks fun as hell, though, is what sucks. You'd have to budget it and think about it. And But Lord, those prices to just eat and do normal things like a beer and a pretzel was $19 or some shit. Strychnine, what's up? Get in here. Brooklyn in here. We got everybody. The whole Buzz Nation decided to pop in this morning. I love it.
At the last 4 or 5 lines of that, could you turn to that, please? And I'll have a couple of questions.
Okay.
At some point, nurse, page 4, line starting at halfway through line 19.
I'm sorry.
Here, I'll show you that.
Somebody called.
Jesus. Now that sounds brutal.
About halfway through line 19, Nurse Lovett says, go ahead, push 5 milligrams of morphine IV on her. You can, in fact, give her up to 10 milligrams if you really want to. And then she says, this patient hasn't been drinking alcohol. Has she? Over. Based on your...
Dude, I saw a brutal finger break once, and it was in like high school. I think it was a dodgeball game, dude, and someone just launched this ball at this dude, and dude, tried to catch it, but it just bounced off his hands, and finger just went completely sideways. And I'll never forget it. He didn't react. He didn't scream. He didn't freak out. He just like, I think I broke my finger. Like, it was just crooked. It was just fucking like mangled. And I was like, he's just like,
your years of experience in this job at Cedars-Sinai, supervising nurses in this area, why would Nurse Lovett ask that question?
That's really cool. And I bet there is a way to, like you said, sharing meals. That's smart.
Yes, it's within policy.
I bet the portions are huge.
You want to check before you give any kind of a narcotic medication to a patient to see if they might have any other kind of drugs or medication on board that might potentiate potentiate this medication. So for her to ask that was perfectly acceptable and should essentially be done.
It should be done in your view?
Yes.
Before morphine is given to a patient with injuries like this, it should be inquired of the health professionals whether or not she had been drinking alcohol.
Yes.
Or any other drugs?
Or any other drugs, not just alcohol.
So that was appropriate thing for her to do?
Yes.
In fact, an important.
Happy birthday, Disney nerd. That's awesome. Happy 40th. Hell yeah. Yeah, my next birthday will be 39, which will be in October. So right behind you there. Hell yeah. Well, that's a good spot to do it in, too.
Question.
An important question, yes.
Now, turning to the next page, page 5, at the top 3 lines, the paramedic Liverpool says she denies any alcohol consumption at this time, and she does not appear to be under any influence. As health professional, a nurse who practices in this area, what does that mean to you?
It means essentially if the patient's under any influence such as alcohol or drugs, paramedics, when they get on scene, are expected to look around a room and look for empty pill bottles for...
I'm going to object to this part. This is speculation. It's not within the ambit of this witness.
Oh, I disagree. She's part of this program, and she knows what the appropriate behavior they're supposed to do. Obviously, she wasn't on scene. She can't say whether they did. She's talking about what they're trained to do, which she has knowledge of. The objection is overruled.
You can complete your answer.
Okay. Essentially, they're expected to look for essentially objective evidence, looking for bottles, looking for any kind of pill bottles, any kind of drug paraphernalia. It just helps us essentially determine what state the patient's in. So that, to me, is part of their assessment.
So in this situation, Nurse Lovett asked about alcohol, and then the paramedic responded that she denies alcohol consumption, correct?
Yes.
So as a person who practices in this area, does that mean to you that they asked?
Yes.
Okay.
That they asked the patient.
And that the patient denied any alcohol consumption?
Yes.
I'm going to object on that.
You made your point. You may move along.
And then the second part of it is the paramedic tells Nurse Lovett she does not appear to be under any influence, correct?
Correct.
In an earlier answer just a moment ago, you said one of their jobs, one of the paramedics' jobs, is to make an assessment not only of the patient but of the area around them to determine whether or not drugs or alcohol might be involved, correct?
Correct.
Does this line tell you, what I just read to you, that the paramedic did just that?
Yes.
That he made his own determination that she did not appear to be under the influence of either alcohol or drugs?
Again, I'm going to object.
Not necessarily. She did answer the question, and I think we can move along now.
And would you expect a paramedic in this situation to make those inquiries?
Yes.
Could I have a moment, please?
There's the question. So let's just take a second here. Hold on, actually. So this is video 186 of 244. So, I mean, 75-80% of the way there, I would imagine. I think this is going to be going probably through the rest of the summer, though. Or into the summer. And we are already at, what, a year? I think we've already reached a year, if I'm not mistaken. Or approaching a year, if we haven't. A long one to do weekly. You know, there for a minute I was doubling up and doing Sunday and Tuesday. And then I only really do double up or even triple ups if I really enjoy the witness. You know, a lot of it can be kind of slow. But I could never, I have to finish. We have to finish the trial, though. But I do regret putting such a long trial on there. It's a lot. I was itching off this morning. What do they say? Somebody's coming to visit if that happens.
Thank you, nothing further.
Thank you, cross-examination.
Your nose is itching. Oh my God, it's Rosen. Jesus, motherfucker. All right, I gotta control myself this morning.
Good afternoon.
A literal year of our existence.
We sort of have the same namesake. Yours just has a few more letters than mine does. I stop at the N. How do you prefer to be addressed? Miss, Mrs., Ms.? I can't call you Paula.
Okay, Mrs. is fine.
Mrs. is fine, okay. I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to follow up with what Mr. Dixon was talking about. We'll be here a little bit, not too long. As I understand it, you have been with Cedars for over 2 decades, is that correct?
Yes.
And you have been in their employ consistently during this, I believe you indicated, almost 30 years, correct?
In the hospital, yes.
So you're a real veteran at this, aren't you?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Long time.
All right. And you have a lot of experience. You trained formally. You have a lot of on-the-job experience. And you basically have been doing this work for a long time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Too deep.
Let me ask you this. As I understand it, you are a registered nurse with all the qualifications. And I got to be honest with you, you rattled them off so quickly I couldn't get them down, but they were quite impressive, I will say that. Are you also a paramedic?
No.
Okay, so you're not a trained paramedic.
No.
And as I understand it, your employer is Cedars-Sinai. It is not the County of Los Angeles, isn't that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know a gentleman by the name of Bruce Liverpool?
I don't know him personally, no.
Okay. How about a gentleman by the name of Daniel Stark? Do you know him personally?
No.
That's right.
No.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that was actually the true reason of why I chose this trial. Because this trial was picked by the people. It was in a voting situation, but I did really hype this up during the tournament because of Alan Jackson. I was like, oh man, we have to, yeah, we've circled all the way back around to where it is fresh to promote it again because he's hot and doing a hot trial. That's insane. That's fucking wild, actually.
And it seemed like
Wow,
your CV was quite extensive, but the one thing I just wanted to ask you, because I don't know if I missed it or not, are you also a
This trial is the length of the next Grand Theft Auto release. We're all just going to be
medical doctor?
decrepit.
No.
Okay, you're not an MD.
No.
All right. Now, Mr. Dixon asked you a number of questions about Nurse Lovett, and Nurse Lovett is one of the individuals who you supervise, is that correct?
That's right.
She's one of the 43?
Yes, she is.
Okay. And as of December 24th, 2001, so we're stretching back almost 7 years, about 6.5 years. How long had she been working at Cedars-Sinai in that capacity?
I'm not sure,
That's
but
cool.
I know she was an MICN by 1996. I don't have her exact, I don't know the exact date that she became an MICN, but I know it was at least since '96.
Okay, since '96. So at that time, it was approximately about 5
That's
years.
that weird
right?
fate.
Yes.
Did she come to
I
work
could never
directly
explain
in
anything that's happening in my
1996
life.
to
Just
Cedars
all, like,
in the
happened.
MICN
Really?
unit?
No.
When did she start to work at Cedars?
I don't know when she actually started to work at Cedars.
Okay, so what you can tell us is that she was MICN qualified in 1996, but how much before December 24th of 2001 she actually started her employment with Cedars, we don't know at this point. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I don't know.
So she could have been working at Cedars for a day, a week, a month, or maybe even a year or two, or more, correct? We just don't know.
Yeah, I don't have the exact date. No.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. And do you know what her formal training was prior to 1996?
Her registered nurse training? No, I don't.
Okay, do you know where she did it?
She's not all of it. I know where some of the trainings, where she's worked in Australia and the United States.
Okay. Before, how long, let me ask you this way, let me back up. On December 24th of 2001, how long had you been supervising Nurse Lovett?
Okay, I started this position in 2002, so in 01 I was not the pre-hospital care coordinator.
I see. So when Mr. Dixon was asking you all those questions about People's 57, the base hospital form, as I understand it, when Nurse Lovett filled out this form, she was not working under your supervision at that time. Isn't that what you're telling us?
Yes.
Okay. So that gets me to the next question, which is, do you have the form before you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If you need to refer to the form when I ask you this next series of questions, please let us know, and then the judge will let you know if you can look at it, okay?
Yes.
All right. I don't want you to look at it unless you need to. If you need to, then just alert me to that, and we'll work it from there. So, as I understand it, the form which we just saw up on the screen here, you did not supervise Nurse Lovett at the time that she filled this form out, which would have been on December 24th of 01, around 11:30, 11:35, correct?
Right, I was not in the position then.
All right. When were you first contacted and notified that you might be needed as a witness in this trial?
It was last week.
So up until that time, you didn't know who Mr. Dixon or Mr. Jackson were?
No.
Have you been following this trial at all in the news media?
Not really, no.
Okay.
No.
It's refreshing to find somebody that hasn't. And in terms of being contacted, who contacted? Was it Mr. Dixon?
No.
Was some other person working on behalf of the prosecution staff?
Yes.
Okay, you remember that person's name?
Yes.
And what was that person's name?
It was John Little.
John Little?
Yes.
And how did Mr. Little identify himself? As a deputy DA or an investigator or what?
He worked for the fire department and was involved with this case.
So an employee of the fire department contacted you? Is that what you're telling us?
What happened was he called to see if it was possible to get a tape that was back in 2001, and since I'm the pre-hospital care coordinator, it was directed to me to see if I could get that for him.
And he told you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so that's how I got involved with this.
Okay, so Mr. Little told you that he was calling on behalf of the DA's office and he wanted to get a copy of this tape, the portion of which we just heard, right?
Well, yeah, he was.
Okay.
Yes, he was.
Okay. And when was the first time, well, let me ask you this, did you get the tape?
Yes, I was able to get the tape.
And did you physically provide it to Mr. Little at a later time after that phone call?
No. I was also contacted by someone else connected with the case and was...
Do you remember that person's name?
Yes.
And what was that person's name?
Gene Daly.
I'm sorry?
Gene Daly.
And did Mr. Daly indicate to you that he was also working? Well, first of all, let me ask, is it a male or a female?
Jean. Oh, I'm sorry, female.
Okay. And I'll just use the term Ms. Daly. Did Ms. Daly indicate to you that she was working for the fire department like Mr. Little did?
No.
Did she indicate who she was working for?
She was, yes.
And was that the DA's office?
Yes.
And did you provide that tape to her?
Yes, I did.
And when was it the first time you met with Mr. Dixon? Today?
No, it was on Monday of this week.
Okay, so we're on Wednesday, so you met with him a couple days ago?
Yes.
And you met with him to discuss your testimony that you've provided here in court today before the jury?
Have a great one.
Correct.
Happy birthday again.
And as I understand it, Mr. Dixon, he went over your testimony with you, didn't he?
Yes.
And when he was talking to you, he had particular interest in several areas of your testimony, didn't he?
Yes.
In particular, he really spent time with you discussing that portion of the base hospital form that you told us and identified as, well, let's put it up there. Jen, do you have it, or should we have Sue put it up?
We just have a movie. Yes. We have it here, Your Honor.
Okay, Sue, did you put it up, please? Thank you.
Uh-oh. Rocking the striped black red combo today. But let's not forget, hold on, where's Magoo? Where's Magoo at? Where's Magoo? Where's the ghoul? Boom, there's the ghoul. Ladies and gentlemen, don't actually forget what we're looking at here. Phil Spector, a.k.a. the ghoul. Straight from Tales from the Crypt.
Now, that particular portion which is highlighted in yellow, which has a 0 and a line slashed through it, and the letters ETOH, uppercase, capital letters. He spent some time talking to you about that, didn't he?
We talked about it, yes.
Now, that was an important part of his discussions with you on Monday, correct?
Sustained.
Well, let me ask it this way. He spent time discussing this portion of the report with you, the base hospital form report, correct?
Yes, we spoke about this and the whole form as well.
Sure, I understand. And you have told us that what this means is ETOH stands for ethanol, which is a fancy term for alcohol, correct?
Alcohol, yes.
And the 0 with a slash through it, that's kind of the universal sign for no.
Correct.
All right. And as I understand it, this is an official base hospital form provided by DHS and maintained as a business record at the Cedars-Sinai Hospital, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Sudie. When was the first time, well, let me ask this. How much time did you spend with Mr. Dixon getting prepared on Monday?
Maybe 20 minutes.
Was that in person, vis-a-vis, face-to-face, or
yes.
Here in this building?
Yes.
Upstairs in Mr. Dixon's office on the 17th floor?
We're right there. We're one day away. It started on May 5th here. That's insane. Holy crap. We are actually at the 1-year anniversary of this trial. That's crazy.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not going to ask you what his office looks like. I know. We won't embarrass Mr. Dixon. Let me ask this. Mr. Dixon, I said I wasn't going to embarrass you. You opened the door like that. All right. Let me ask you this. Did you speak with him or anyone else on the DA staff team between that meeting on this last Monday and today?
Yes.
And who was that?
I spoke with Jean Daly.
Okay, and who else?
And John Little.
Okay. So you've had a number of conversations, is that correct? Regarding your testimony?
Yes.
And when you spoke with Daly and Little, Jean Daly and Mr. Little, was Mr. Dixon present?
Yes.
And where did those conversations take place?
In his office upstairs.
Okay, and was that on Tuesday or today?
That's insane.
I spoke with them on Monday in his office.
Okay. And that was after you had been interviewed, is that correct?
Interviewed?
Well, after Mr. Dixon interviewed you.
Yes.
Okay, and then after he interviewed, by the way, when he interviewed you, was Miss Daly in the room?
Yes.
Was Mr. Little in the room?
Yes.
and they were all in the room when Mr. Dixon asked you the questions about the base hospital form and your experience as a nurse and Nurse Levitt, correct?
Yes.
So they were all there together, right?
Yes.
And did he play the tape for you in his office like he did here in court?
No.
Was this the first time you've heard the tape?
No.
When did you first hear the tape prior to today?
When I had to make a copy of it to give to Gene Daly. It's on a different format at Cedars, and I had to get it onto a CD so that they could play it. So I heard it then, when I actually did the transforming onto the DVD.
You actually did the transforming yourself?
Yes.
And was that at the hospital?
Yes.
Were you asked to listen to it?
No, but I was interested in listening to it, so I did.
Okay. You wanted to see what was
wanted to see what was on the tape.
Okay, fine. So when was it that you first saw the base hospital form, which has been previously marked People's 57?
It was on Monday.
Okay. And did you look at it again today before you testified?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon actually met with you earlier today and chatted a little bit.
A little bit, yes.
About your testimony before you testified, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you've had several meetings with him, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Looking at that now, Shelley.
Now, as I understand it, you are not the author
It is a
of
ride.
People's 57, this base hospital
crazy.
form, correct?
No.
Okay. None of the printed or cursive handwriting, and I'm excluding for a moment the form printing on here, but none of the cursive, none of the printed writing is yours, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I think you said the first time you looked at this document was on Monday, is that right?
Yes.
So between...
I'm going to pause this just because we're watching this real quick. And I'm going to look. I'm not going to play it just to play it, but look at this. The Strat in Vegas. Is this what you were talking about, Shelley? They have some kind of music, but you go way the fuck up. Like, this looks crazy. So, like, the ride's on top of a high building already. Holy shit. So, like, when you're up there, you're not only just, like, you're already, like, it's adding so much more height. The big Strat, the big shot, the Strat is 1,081 feet. Holy cow. Wow, yeah, that would be a no-go for me, I'm going to have to say.
Hold up! Hold up! Hold up!
Dude. Look at those, the cars look like freaking ants down there, dude. Dude, no.
December 24th, 2001. And Monday, which was, what was that?
That's insanity.
6th, I think, of August of this year. You had not reviewed this report, right?
No.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about the structure of this report. As I understand your testimony, this base hospital form is not with the paramedics, it's with the hospital, correct?
Yes.
And in this instance, it's with your hospital, Cedars-Sinai, correct?
A copy also goes to the Department of Health Services.
But that's after it's filled out.
Yes.
Okay. So let's just kind of take a moment and
hold on.
Make sure that we all understand how this works. The
Crazy morning in here.
He or she is in the field, correct?
Yes.
Hanging out
the nurse, I think,
new folks,
is
Linda Kitty Bodden. Who would have, a year ago when we started this trial, who could have imagined that the defense attorney for Phil Spector himself would be telling folks to watch it on this channel? What's even happening? Life makes zero sense, guys.
Am I seeing nurse? Am I saying it right?
Everything.
Yes.
We live inside of a dream, okay? I'm telling you right now. I say that often on X. It's true.
My CN nurse, he or she is not in the field. That individual is at the hospital, correct?
Right.
All right. And, of course, this is a hospital that's working in conjunction with the Department of Health Services, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, Nurse Lovett, she's based somewhere physically in the hospital when this call comes in. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And basically what she does is she receives this call. She serves, and I don't mean this in any negative way, but she serves in a sense much like an operator does or an information service officer when you dial 411 or 0 on your telephone, correct?
I can't really say that she's like an operator. I mean, she does record the information that she's given and processes it for a reason, and that's for the treatment of the patient.
Okay. So it may very well be that the nurse who takes this information, the MICN nurse who takes this information, may in fact never meet the individual who's phoning the information in. Isn't that right?
Action Park.
Right?
Hold on. Let's throw that one sound clip.
Yes, that's
Action Park.
Possible.
And in this particular instance, you have no ability to tell us, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but you have no ability to tell us whether or not Nurse Lovett from Australia even knew the lady or gentleman that provided this information. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
You don't know whether or not Nurse Lovett knew either Mr. Stark or Mr. Liverpool.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of respect for each other and probably were even friends at this point in time.
At about 11:30 at night on December 24th in the year 2001, do you?
No.
You weren't there when the information was taken, only she.
That's right.
Okay. You've been a supervising nurse for some length of time, correct?
Yes.
And in your capacity as a supervising nurse at Cedars-Sinai, one of your responsibilities, I think you said, was to review these reports, correct?
Yes.
And I'm sure there's just no possible way you can even begin to estimate how many of these you've looked at over the years, is there?
Many.
Tens of thousands, probably, correct?
Probably thousands over the last 5 years, yes.
That's so crazy.
And most of the time, they look just fine to you, don't they?
Hopefully, yes, most of the time, but there are times when they're not correct.
Well, tell us about that. Tell us a little bit about that. When you that means you can answer the question. Tell us a little bit about when you look at it and they're not correct.
Well, when I look at the form, I have to make sure that there's a lot of boxes on this form that essentially just have to do with documentation. And if they're not filled out correctly, then I sometimes go back and listen to the tape and see if I can get that information. Also, there's destination policy that we deal with, determining if the patient's going to the correct facility, looking at the treatment guidelines to make sure that the treatment of the patient is correct. So there's different elements that I look at when I critique the form.
Okay. Now, you never critiqued this form, correct?
No, I did not.
Okay. And I guess what I'm asking at is this. It's not a 100% foolproof system. Sometimes mistakes are made, correct?
Yes.
Sometimes the mistake may be on the part of the paramedic, for example. Maybe the paramedic has made a mistake, correct?
Correct.
Oh, this looks crazy.
You're a professional, you're a veteran. You have, in your own personal experience, working at Cedars, found paramedics to make errors and mistakes, correct?
Yes.
And sometimes, unfortunately, the MICN nurse may make a mistake. Isn't that right?
Yes.
As far as we know, all the information that appears on People's 57, this base hospital form, came from the paramedic. Is that correct?
Yes.
By the way, when you look at this, and please feel free to look at it with the court's permission,
Yes.
of course. When you look at it, is there any indication here as to the name of the party that was speaking to Nurse Lovett and providing this information?
No, it's not recorded on this form, but the paramedic form has the name of the medics on it.
No, this one that Shelley sent me was Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park in Colorado.
Okay, that's
So you can identify.
the paramedic form.
Yes, the EMS form, yes.
And hopefully the numbers match up so we...
Right.
Okay.
That's how they're identified,
All right.
yes.
Now, let's just for a moment assume that this information, because we've listened to a portion of the tape, came from an individual, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Bruce Liverpool, okay, who was a paramedic at the time, okay?
Yes.
So as I understand your testimony, all of the information that is on this form comes from Mr. Liverpool, other than what she, Nurse Lovett, has advised him to do in terms of treating the patient, correct?
Yes.
Nurse Lovett would have only recorded what she was told, correct?
Right.
So, for example, if the paramedic, if Mr. Liverpool had made a decision in his own mind that ethanol, alcohol, was not involved, and he told Nurse Lovett that, then Nurse Lovett would have written that down, correct?
Yes.
And she would have only had to go by what he told her, isn't that right?
Yes.
As I understand it correctly, Nurse Lovett, she would not have seen this individual about whom Mr. Liverpool was providing information once the ambulance arrived at the emergency room at Cedars. Isn't that correct?
If the patient came to Cedars, she could have seen the patient come into the emergency room.
Okay.
Since the destination was Cedars and she was located at Cedars, so she could have seen the patient, yes.
You've used the word could have, so let me follow up on that.
Okay.
Is there anything on this base hospital form, as you look at it, and with the court's permission,
Yes.
please feel free to look at it, that indicates that Nurse Lovett saw this individual that evening?
No.
Dude, I'm gonna buy like some fair food. Fair food will get me every time.
And you have no other information to indicate that that occurred, correct?
Correct.
So, if in fact, if Mr. Liverpool made his own personal judgment that alcohol, ethanol, was not involved, and radioed that in to Nurse Lovett, and Nurse Lovett never had the opportunity to verify that, she would only be able to record on People's 57, the base form, what Mr. Lovett told her. Isn't that fair?
Yes.
Give me everything.
If I can just add one thing with the paramedics.
Sure.
Paramedics
We still
are
got a wheel to
trained, they're
spin here, guys,
educated.
in about
They're like our
25
eyes
minutes.
out in the field looking at patients. So we essentially need to listen to their reports and hopefully get the best assessment of the patient that we can. And other things that they look at are things like if the patient's gait is steady, if they have track marks. I mean, they look at different things on the patient as well to help determine this decision that they make. And the fact that they ask the patient as well, that's all part of determining this particular decision as to the fact that there was no alcohol.
Okay. Now, you know nothing personally about the facts of this situation, correct?
No shit.
You
No,
weren't-
no,
you
no,
weren't
I don't
there
know
when
anything about
Let's
no.
use a
the young
different
lady was picked
Let's
up,
go
you
with
weren't in the
number 2
ambulance on the
here.
way there, and you weren't in the room when Nurse Lovett was talking to
Spector.
Mr. Liverpool, correct?
Right.
All right. There's nothing on the form here that talks about any field sobriety tests being given, any observations of gait, anything of observations of anything of that nature. It's not in here, is there?
No, it's not.
Okay. So let me ask you this. You already told us paramedics from time to time make mistakes, correct?
Yes.
All right. I want to go back to the tape for a moment, if we may. Now, you said that you retrieved the tape and you transformed it from one format to another format, placed it on DVD to provide it for purposes here in court, correct?
Yes.
You also told us that you listened to it at that point, correct?
Yes.
And you listened to a portion of it here today, is that right?
Yes.
Between the time that you prepared it and provided it to the prosecution and today, had you listened to it any other times?
I listened to it with Sue Lovett.
Okay. So you've listened to it 2 or 3 times?
Yes.
Okay. It's a very short tape, correct?
Yes.
I'm not going to play it again, but Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would like to play just one small portion of it. Thank you.
Shot of Phil. Philly. The Ghoul Spector. When he died, he was worth $50 million.
Sudi's already
in prison.
Yes, I will. Already laying disclaimers. She's going to do her best, so we may get a little bit before and a little bit after.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me get a picture of him in jail. He's got like a skull
If I could just approach the witness,
Yes.
show her what I want her to focus on.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's old Philly boy.
This part here. It starts right here.
Okay.
Up to there.
Cut off the most important part, which is a bald head.
Okay, all right.
I think this is the last picture.
Ready? Okay, here we go.
And she does not appear to be under any influence. We both slipped on the same rut.
10 milligrams if you really want to.
Crypt keeper. Crypt fucking keeper, right? Am I right or wrong? That's the crypt keeper with a wig on. This right here is the crypt keeper from fucking Tales from the Crypt.
A little bit, just a smidge earlier, please.
If I'm lying, I'm dying.
Person hasn't been drinking alcohol, has she? Over.
She denies any alcohol consumption at this time, and she does not
Bitty
appear to
bitchy, what is up? What's going on, Ayana?
be under any
Come in
influence.
here. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Sudi. Okay, you heard that?
Yes.
Okay, and you heard two voices on that, correct? You heard Nurse Lovett's voice, who asked the question, this patient hasn't been drinking alcohol, has she? Over.
Yeah.
You heard
Yes,
that?
that was her voice, yes.
And then you heard a male voice say, she denies any alcohol consumption at this time, and she does not appear to be under any influence, correct?
Yes.
All right. So let's just take a moment and talk about this. Nurse Lovett inquires of the alcohol consumption, which according to Mr. Dixon's questions of you was perfectly proper protocol, correct?
Yes.
That's what she's supposed to do, correct?
Yes.
Because like you said, sometimes it's
Yeah.
important to know whether or not somebody has consumed
That's the vibe for
alcohol, or
sure.
they've consumed a particular prescription drug, or maybe a controlled substance without a prescription, in terms of knowing how to assess the situation for proper treatment, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I assume that's because there can be a danger if somebody's ingested something and the wrong medication is prescribed without the knowledge of what that person's ingested, right?
Yes.
All right. Let's look at the words very carefully, what is said by the male voice. The male voice says, in answer to Nurse Lovett's question, she denies any alcohol consumption at this time, correct?
Yes.
All right. So that sentence indicates that it is she, whoever that young lady happens to be, is the one telling the paramedic
Yeah, it feels like he's
no
alcohol,
alcohol,
correct?
correct?
I can't even
Yes.
do it. I can't even do
Now
it.
let's finish the sentence. And it goes on to say, and she is,
Yo, Salty, thanks for
she
hanging.
does not appear to be
have a
under
good day.
any influence. Did you hear those words?
Yes.
The words that were used by, and we'll say the paramedic, the male voice, was, does not appear, correct?
Yes.
That individual did not say that she was not under the influence of any drugs, or that he was positive that she was clean and not under the influence.
Yeah,
What
here.
the voice said of the paramedic was, she
20
does
minutes
not
till the wheel
appear
spin.
to be under any influence,
Thank
correct?
you. Yeah, trimmed her up.
Correct.
Trimmed her up. I need to do some more trimming. It's starting to come back now.
And of course, as we push the fast forward button and we get to
Thank you.
August 8th of 2007, today's
I got
day,
tired of the big.
we have
hugeness.
no way to
The
reconstruct
goatee got really tiresome.
what went on at that time that caused those impressions for that
So
male
let's start
voice to
from
speak
scratch.
those words to Nurse Lovett, correct?
Correct.
All we have is the tape, right?
Yes.
Okay. You have the court's indulgence.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out this morning. I appreciate it. We haven't
Ladies
hit
and
that
gentlemen,
light,
keep in
do
mind
we?
the ammunition will be in recess for 15 minutes. Thank you.
We're going to take a little break, Ski. They'll be right back. They do it pretty
The order, court is get in session.
All right, all the parties, jurors, alternates, and the witness are present. You may proceed.
Make sure you're following Salty Sleuth Investigates. yeah, hit that link right there. Give her a follow. She streams about every day, covers Koberger, Carrot Reed, Delphi, a lot of the major cases. So yeah, make sure you're following her. It's cool.
Welcome back. I just have a few more questions I want to ask you, okay? I think when we
Good fight.
we were talking about the medical form and the tape, and I just wanted to ask you one other question. In your experience, not only as a supervisor, which is your present position, but when you were
that wheel
working
coming, baby.
over the last 3 decades for Cedars, and I assume you had contact with patients just like Nurse Levitt did?
Yes.
Many times, correct?
Yes.
And oftentimes, isn't it true that when paramedics ask people, do kind of a intake at the scene, and they ask them if they've been drinking, sometimes people deny it, don't they?
That's correct.
Okay. Just a couple of other areas. Your Honor, I have a couple pages here that I want to have Mark. I've shown them to Mr. Dixon. They're bait stamp numbers so that you can have it for your records, Mr. Dixon. 7571, 7572, and 7535.
How many?
Maybe
I agree.
7585.
I think this looks way older than 2007. Just something about the way it's shot, the courtroom, the decor. I don't know.
I can't
How
tell.
many exhibits are we talking about?
It's 3 pages, and
Collectively, it's
So much
E11.
E11?
Yes.
Okay.
That could be what if they made this trial, I was about to say into a movie, which they did make into a movie, but if the trial was just about the trial, every aspect about the trial, not just Phil Spector and his life, you could call it that right there. What does this have to do with the case? I think, Jesus, so much bullshit. If you will. Like Dusty
And
Rhodes,
you recall
maybe.
the questions that Mr. Dixon asked you when he was showing you the base hospital form about whether or not this was, and I'm not going to go through all those, but you remember he showed you this and asked you if this was a...
Yeah, it's like you can tell that the colors. Look at how bright these papers are right here. Like somebody did white balance or something. I don't know, but it's so fucking bright.
Official business
I think it's
record
a
of
camera
Cedars-Sinai, the base form, People's 57.
Yes.
Okay. And you indicated yes, correct?
Yes.
And you're familiar with how the business records are kept there?
Yes.
Made at or near the time of the event in question?
Yes.
And they're accurate, correct?
Yes.
And they're kept as official records by the hospital?
Yes, they are.
And kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to come up and show you a couple of documents here and ask you if these...
All right.
I took advantage of Mr. Dixon. I showed him to him previously without his glasses. Now he's got his glasses.
Okay.
While they're doing that, let me follow up on one other question. And isn't it correct that once the patient is brought into the hospital, those patients who deny drinking, it's turned out that in fact, in actuality, they had been drinking?
That can happen, yes.
Okay. And now we have to wait a moment so Mr. Jackson, Mr. Dixon can look at these. Then we'll have you on your way.
Sorry, Mr. Jackson. Ooh. Gonna put Phil Spector in the prison, yeah. Alan Jackson kicking ass every day. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson. Ooh. I am for real.
Ms. Rosenfeld, I think what I was asking you was about
running his
the
mouth
fact that you were familiar that these records are kept within the normal course and scope of the business, and they are the official business records of Cedars-Sinai.
That's correct.
Okay. And during the break, did I come up and show you some records to give you an opportunity to familiarize yourself with it?
Yes.
And may I approach, Your Honor, please? Okay, this is for foundational purposes.
Dude, I wish, Red Metal, I wish that I could give you some recommendations for some of the past episodes. Some of the early ones were pretty interesting. There was this one cat that isn't even there anymore. We called him the mob lawyer, the mob attorney. And who did he represent? He represented, God, it's been so long now, I can't keep everything in my head. He represented a mobster, though. I can't remember exactly who, in real life. And then, of course, he's representing Phil Spector as well. But he was intense. Like, he was very argumentative with the judge. So much so that they basically made him shut the fuck up and he just sat there until he finally disappeared. I don't know if he got fired or what happened, but yeah, he didn't last long. But very interesting. I made a few clips of him. But there's a few really good witnesses, though. God, but again, I need to make a list because I'm so bad with names.
And I want to
We've
show
had a lot
you
of fun with
once
this.
again.
And some people start all the way from the beginning, so
I showed before, and if you just take a look at them, and when you finish looking at them briefly, you don't have to read every word on them, just take a look at them, and then I'll ask the questions.
I've had some wild episodes. I do know
You've
that.
seen documents like this
A year of them?
many times in your career, haven't you?
Yes.
And these are, in fact, official business records of Cedars-Sinai, correct?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Jen, could we have up first?
No, he was
the
out.
Patient
He was
profile,
out
which,
the entire time.
That's 7.5. Is it 7.5, 8.5, or 3?
Bruce Cutler and John
8.5?
Gotti. Thank you, Brooklyn. Yeah. Bruce Cutler was this attorney that sat in this seat right here for the longest of times. Bald dude, kind of burly, big, kind of looked like a bulldog. Ready to fight at all times. He did an opening and then Linda Kenny Bodden did an opening, but she went second. After his, the openings are insane. The openings are multiple episodes. All right, they're so long. But his part was insane, completely nuts, off the rails. The judge kept warning him about stuff. Linda Kenny Bodden came up and gave a really good one to where I even was like, whoa, I can't wait to get into this because they're making some really good points. I've come to what I think is happening now, but I also like to walk the line of, because the defense is basically wanting you to believe that she killed herself. So, we can walk that line, but I don't think I actually believe that, not with the evidence that we've seen and the past actions of Phil Spector on the reg. I mean, it was a trend almost for him to just put a gun in a female's face and or mouth, threatening them in the manner and situation it seems like Lana Clarkson was in that night. So I don't know. It's a very interesting, and it gets really spicy. That's right. This trial gets very, very spicy. That's also why I've got the spicy pepper emoji for members to launch off there. This is a crazy trial. It's very interesting to watch.
So I'm going to need your help on this.
And he was out on bail or bond or whatever the entire time until he eventually did go to prison.
Very good. And Sudie, I'm going to ask you to help me with that if you could, please.
Dude, one of his quotes was insane, though. He was literally saying that he gets possessed when he's up there because the judge just kept going like, you have to stop. You can't, because he was trying to fight the witnesses. It was instantly argumentative with everybody. Rosen's bad, but Rosen wasn't this level of just like at your throat. I can't even explain it. It's interesting to check those out just to see how Cutler's style is, because I couldn't imagine what judge is letting him attack witnesses or anyone the way that he was here. But he literally, one of the clips, he says, I can't remember the quote, but he's basically saying, I get possessed while I'm up here and I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it was insane. I remember when it happened, I was like, what did he just say?
Can you blow up the right?
It was crazy.
Oh, who's got it? You got it, okay. Jen, I'm going to ask you to help me with this. Could you blow up the right-hand portion, which is just next
Linda's
to
the best one. There's another one there, the guy that's kind of in front of Rosen. I think his name's Plord. He's okay. He's kind of a dick too at times, but not like Rosen. Rosen rubs me, and I think everyone in this room the wrong way.
Yes.
He tries too hard. The real him comes out often because he tries to break the ice. He tries to act like he's a friendly person, but he's always just this little snarky twat.
It's a little bit difficult to make out, but I think I can. It looks like Lana Clarkson.
Okay. And there appears.
Yeah, I think that might be you nailed it. I think motion to screen.
There appears to be a date underneath that. It looks like April 5th of 1962. Is that correct?
Yes.
What date would that be?
The birth date.
That's right.
And
that's a good way to put it too.
Birth date for Ms. Clarkson?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. And Jen, could we have shrink that? There we go. And can you blow up the next section just below that, please? There we go. Now, there's three areas here that I want to discuss with you for a moment. The first one is entitled Admitting Diagnosis. You see that, do you not?
Yes.
And can you tell us, it looks like it's the word bilat, comma. It looks like wrist, what does that say? Can you tell me? You're probably going to be a lot better than I am.
Bilateral wrist fracture,
Okay, what does that mean?
that she had fractures on both of her wrists.
Okay, and then underneath we have the next line is entitled Symptoms Necessitating Hospitalization. And what does the cursive writing there say?
It looks like bilateral wrist pain.
Okay, and below that there's a third section entitled Patient's Goals for this Hospitalization. And what does the cursive writing say there?
2, and I'm not sure what that second word is, and then it looks like no pain.
Okay. Now, Jen, if you would help us here and shrink that back down, and then if you go over to the left area where it says Other, would you please blow that up? Yes. All right, now, that's another section on this particular part of defendants E11, correct? That's another part of E11?
Yes.
Okay. And what is that part? Can you tell us?
Looks like the medications that the patient is taking is being listed there.
And the person who prepares the patient profile would be one of the employees at Cedars-Sinai, correct?
I believe it's the physician.
The physician.
That actually does that, yes.
Okay, that's after the paramedics have brought her there and have now left, and now she's in the care and in the good hands of the Cedars-Sinai staff, correct?
Yes.
All right. And can you please tell us what that says?
Looks like it's written albuterol inhaler.
Okay.
As a PRN, that looks like, which means as needed, and underneath it looks like Paxil Q-Day, which is every day.
Okay. And now, Jen, could you please shrink that? And would you go down to the next section, which says substance use history? Would you please enlarge that?
Jesus fuck.
Thank you. Do you see that
I just
section?
saw a little kid get brain damage from
Yes.
a deer.
Okay.
Oh
and
my
again,
God!
that's entitled
Jesus
substance
fuck.
use history, correct?
Oh,
Yes.
And-
hold on one second. I don't even know what happened. I just turned on over to X and oh my God in heaven. Hold on. Give me 1 second here. Mother of God. First of all, you shouldn't have your kid this close to any fucking animal like that, probably. Oh God in heaven, dude. That's brutal, actually. This poor kid. Got him right in the chest, dude. Maybe a little in the chin. Jeez, looks... Oh, dude, I was going to say maybe he got the... Oh, my God. What the fuck, dude? Dude, people are fucking idiots.
There's three choices, and there is a box that is checked, correct?
Yes.
And which box is that?
It says alcohol.
And to the right of that, it says describe, and what does it say there?
It's difficult for me to read.
Okay, let me just suggest the word social.
It could be, yes.
Okay.
It's just hard to read that, yes.
All right, and where would that information come from? The patient?
Yes.
Okay. And now, Jen, could we please have the next 2 pages of Defense E11? And I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about these, and then I think we've completed our time together this afternoon. Okay. What is this document?
That looks like the dictation that the physician does after interviewing the patient and the course of treatment in the emergency room. And pretty much everything is spelled out as to what happened to the patient.
And you told us before you worked in the emergency room for many years, so you've probably seen lots of documents like this, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And that's at Cedars, right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you take a look up in the right-hand portion of that document? And Jane, can we have that either highlighted, blown up and highlighted, please, at the very top? And this is just foundation. We'll move through it quickly. Thank you. Who is the patient?
Lana Clarkson.
Okay. And can you shrink that back down a little, Jen? And do you see where it says history and physical examination? Can you see that? Or Jen, can you blow that up, please? For
No.
Mrs. Rosenfield. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it also indicates the date of admission, correct?
Yes.
And what is the date?
2/25/01.
Money, thanks for coming
Could you take a
through.
look again?
Good luck on the wheel.
1225 on
Oh,
that.
no, you're on the next wheel. You're on the next wheel.
So this is all part and parcel of the same.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you tonight, though.
Admission when she was brought there by the paramedics, correct, on
Yes.
the 24th?
Yes.
Okay. And Jen, if you could shrink that, please. And could we have history of present, well, let's have chief complaint, which is the first line, please. And if you could blow that up and then highlight it. All right. And the chief complaint is what?
Bilateral wrist fractures.
Okay. And I just want to focus on two areas of this document. And this document, I understand, was authored by Dr. Brian Solberg, spelled S-O-L-B-E-R-G, Diana. Was that correct?
Yes, that's what it says on the...
Okay, and he was on staff in 2001 at Cedars-Sinai, to your knowledge?
Yes, yes.
Do you know Dr. Solberg?
I
8
just
minutes
know of
till a
him. I don't know him
wheel
personally,
spin.
no.
Okay, fine. And he actually signed this examination form, correct, on the back?
Yes.
All right, I just want to turn your attention to two other areas, and then we're finished. Jen, could I please have past medical history blown up only? Up, right there. I need that blown up and highlighted. Can you highlight that? Thank you. Okay, and Mrs. Rosenfield, do you see that part of the history and physical examination report of Dr. Solberg?
Yes.
What does it say?
Significant for migraine, headache, and that word's cut off, so I can't see that. Depression.
Okay,
I'm
well,
not sure what that...
let me...
Looks like...
Oh, you should take a look at what it says here. Maybe that'll help you.
Okay, and some depression.
Okay.
There's- Okay.
And that information came from whom?
I would assume from the patient.
Okay. And Jen, can we please finally have the section below that entitled Medications? And highlight it up, blow it up and highlight it for me, please. Okay. And can you tell me what it says in that portion of the report of Dr. Solberg?
It says medications, Paxil and headache medications. She uses an albuterol inhaler.
And again, presumably that information would have come from her.
Yes.
And of course,
Yeah, I need to get a goodwill emoji. See what Canva's got.
Thank you, Mrs. Rosenfield, very much. Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Just a few questions, thank you, Your Honor. In that same form, oh, they took it down, but in that same form you have in front of you, do you?
No,
Oh,
I do
we
not.
don't have it. Okay. Lana Clarkson just came in with two painful broken wrists, but Dr. Solberg describes her as a pleasant woman of her age, 39, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in the area of alcohol, it said social. I think we agreed on that, right?
Yes.
And in fact, if I would go to the baseball game and with some friends and have a beer or two or have a glass of wine with dinner, I'd be a social drinker too. Is that correct?
Yes, I would consider that a social drinker, yes.
Okay. Just a couple brief questions. A couple names came up during your conversation or examination with Mr. Rosen. John Little, who's he?
It's a fire chief for LA City Fire, and he works in the arson department.
And liaison between you and the district attorney's office in obtaining the tape and the documents we talked about.
Yes, he assisted with that, yes.
And Gene Daly is a deputy district attorney who works with the fire department with arson, is that correct?
Yes.
And she helped with that too?
Yes, she also assisted, yes.
All right. In fact, they've been kind enough to help you get here, right?
Yes, they have.
Lastly, and of course, as Mr. Rosenbrotter, you're the custodian of records not only for that base hospital form, but for the tape, right?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
And in discussing some of that, Mr. Rosen suggested at one time, and maybe you corrected him, that the nurse, at least in our situation that we've been talking about, Nurse Lovett, was kind of like a telephone operator just taking down this information, kind of like a 911 operator taking down information.
Yes.
Is that correct?
No. The mobile intensive care nurses are trained nurses, gone through special education to be able to help with the assessment and determination of a patient's treatment in the field. So they're highly specialized nurses and are familiar with pre-hospital care setting and what goes on in the pre-hospital care.
they're not only RNs, but they have special training
Yes.
in emergency medicine.
Yes, directed to pre-hospital care.
That means working with the paramedics.
Yes.
So they're there on the phone or on the radio with the paramedics to bring their medical expertise in trying to assist the paramedics in helping the patient in the room. Is
That's
that right?
correct, yes.
Thank you, nothing further.
Thank you. Blue Cross?
Yes, just one question I asked you.
Yes?
Thank you. Just one final question. Mr. Dixon asked you about what a social drinker is, and I think you mentioned going to a Dodger game and having a beer or going to have a glass of wine at dinner. In December, particularly December 24th or 25th of 2001, you didn't know Ms. Clarkson and you had no idea how she defined the word social, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, nothing further.
Thank you. Redirect?
No, thank you, Your Honor, nothing further.
All right, subject to recall, you're excused. Thank you for being here. You may step down.
I got a couple more minutes here. We'll be talking about something.
Yes? And also to accommodate a juror. Congratulations, by the way, to the juror. Birth of a new baby. Well, if you tell me it was conceived during the trial, that we haven't been
You're
here that
so
long.
mean today with pain.
It only seems that long, which gets me to my next point. As you know, tomorrow you'll be here. The sheriffs will take you out to the Grandview address for the view. Please remember, we're there for a jury view.
Well, they're going
I
for
will
a
give
jury
you some
view of the
heads up.
house.
In the residence itself, and remember, this is a residence. It's Mr. Spector's residence. There will be some pictures
Get ready to spin this wheel.
that have been introduced into evidence in the locations that you will be viewing. They will help you orient what you've seen in the pictures as to what you're actually seeing there. In other words, where you'll be, there'll be pictures that correspond to what's been introduced in evidence. Once you've had a chance, and because where you'll be viewing, some of the locations are somewhat small, it'll be done in sets of 6. Each of you, there'll be 6 to a van tomorrow, and then we'll take you through. At some point, I will be inquiring, and please remember, this only goes to, as you're out there, if you need to see something or whatever, I'll be checking with you. This will be on the record as to whether there's something where we're located that you need to see, and I'll make a decision as to that. You'll be brought back here for lunch. After lunch,
Can't
when we
eat
come
lunch at
back
the
and
house?
reconvene at
At
1:30,
Phil's?
I will be able to give you a good
Phil
estimate
Spector
of
will
when this
provide
trial will
lunch.
end. The attorneys are going to tell me tomorrow all the remaining witnesses. Decisions will be made on who's being called and who's not being called. And based on that, I will be able to give you some fairly good idea of when we will be able to finish. So with that in mind, keep it, yes, juror number 2.
I recognize the name of the exhibit today.
What was that?
That's a family friend.
Is a family friend of yours?
Yeah.
Who was that?
Dr. Sabag, that was in defense E11.
Okay, does that have any impact? Thank you for letting us know. Does that have any impact on your ability to fairly impartially judge this trial?
No.
Okay, does anybody wish to be heard as to that?
No.
Okay, anything else? So we'll see you tomorrow. I believe you should be here at 9:30 in the morning. You'll be leaving shortly thereafter, and we'll go from there. So with that in mind, keep in mind the admonition. See you at 9:30.
Before they leave,
Yep.
did you want to keep the name?
All right,
Well,
spin
you might want to, Mr. Rosen makes a point. I don't know how much, we went out, we've seen the scene already, but there may be a small, and
Rosen's that kid in high school, in school, and generally when, the teacher just let the class go and then he reminds him that he didn't give them homework. Fucking
I do mean
loser.
a small amount of walking. You may wish to dress comfortably, and especially comfortable shoes. I don't know that that's going to be that important, but it's not a bad idea. Okay? With that in mind, 9:30 tomorrow. Okay.
All right, baby, we got to spin. Let's see what we're going into next, though. Video 187. It's going to be 53 minutes. We got that in us. The judge and counsel discuss trial proceedings outside the presence of the jury. So some more probably boring-ass bullshit. There's a lot of this. It may get argumentative in here. Rosen's going to be talking some shit, I'm sure. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be about, but yeah. But first and foremost, let's get a win. Now, this is going to be for the stickers, a tattoo, and a magnet as well. So So good luck, everybody, on this will. Thank you, everybody that made this will possible. Buzz Nation. Good luck. I might have to tighten up the wheel. Hold on. See if I can tighten up the space a little bit. It's a little loose. I need to get a new wheel. But I think we got this. Hold on. It's a little rickety. She's a little rickety. Let's get a spin going, though. Ooh, that yellow one there. Stopped dead on this morning. Miss Dina! Oh shit, Miss Dina just got a victory! One of the biggest supporters of the Buzz Nation. Somebody that's been coming through here for a long ass time now, well over a year, and gives me so much love. Congratulations, I love it. Let's go.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Let's go. Love it, love it, love it. Miss Dina, let me get you in the winner's circle, ma'am. Yeah. She came through and I think gifted out 5 memberships this week, which is incredible. Super. Let's go here. Guess Miss Dina. Get the tats. Get the maggot, the magnet. And the stickers. Boom. Hell yeah. Always love when Miss Dina's hanging out. I don't know if she's in the chat here this morning, but she'll definitely get word of that for sure. She's in the Discord. She's always hanging about. That's awesome. So we're going to keep moving forward here this morning. Again, we are done with Paula Rosenfield. Let me get her name off there. And this next part, we got 53 minutes of them discussing some shit outside the presence of the jury. I'm going to run upstairs and use the bathroom real quick. Yes, we love Miss Dina. Absolutely. Congrats. Love it, love it, love it. All right, all the fine folks are in here this morning. Buzz Nation been showing out this morning also. Freaking love it. Can't ask for a better group of people. This week's going to be cool too. I don't know exactly what I'm doing Tuesday night. We'll see where I go. I don't know if it'll be, of course, the book club's going to be happening. It's going to be the book that we're reading, the Ted Bundy book, The Stranger Beside Me. But last week I showed a little bit of Ted Bundy stuff. I've also been doing some Charles Manson stuff, so I'm not sure if it'll be a Manson or maybe a Bundy type of stream again. I found this channel on YouTube that has so much Ted Bundy content that I've never seen before, and we're already so deep into that book, I feel like it works. So Tuesday night could be a Bundy situation. It might be a double Bundy night. And then Thursday night, I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I'm not sure if I'm going to reach out to anybody, if I'm just going to try to do a show. But the last 2 Thursdays, I've started here on YouTube, and then we've jumped over to kick.com/publiclybuzzed. And if you're not following me on that platform, please do so, because I'll stream over there quite often, and we stream stuff over there that we can't stream here on YouTube. The last 2 Thursdays, we've watched Cops, which is one of my favorite things to watch. We're in season 3, still the early 90s. Last week we had Bob Mata on here hanging out, super, super fun. And then, of course, Feral Friday this week, I've got Missy Mayhem, somebody that works for Linda Kinney Bodden. She I know she helps over there running that channel. Justice Served, I think is their channel. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, she's going to be hanging out Friday. I was just on her channel last weekend. We're going to be watching something, probably a horror movie. I know she likes some dark stuff, so we're going to be going down some kind of path. So hopefully everyone just stick with Buzz Nation, stick with Publicly Buzzed. I'll be right back, guys. Thanks, everyone.
The Honorable Larry Paul Phillips, Judge presiding.
All right, defendant's present with his counsel. The district attorneys are present. The jurors and the alternates are not present. Before we call out the jurors, and I understand we're not going to have any witnesses this afternoon, though there are some matters we have to do with the jury. I'll comment on the jury view and some other related matters in a moment. My understanding from talking to the defense and the prosecution is and I want to be able to tell the jurors this as far as scheduling. As I understand it, you have one major witness, I'll call a major witness, that's Dr. Bodden, that you're going to call probably on Monday.
Yes.
You're going to recall Mr.
X.
P-E-X, yes. And then you have some other
yes, that's correct.
witnesses that are going to deal with computer records.
Custodian of records and or computer records, or like one of them deals with the ASCLD records from the Sheriff's Department, but basically records, witnesses that
Custodian records, witnesses will be very short.
Okay, and then
just foundation.
You'll be prepared.
This is our case in chief.
Your case in chief. I know where we're at. It's hard to keep track of, but I know where we're at.
You've got the detailed report.
Okay. Once you rest your case, the people will call I know of one witness, Ms. Robitaille, that you're going to call in rebuttal.
Correct, and we're considering calling a neuropathologist, but that decision has yet to be made.
Okay, and then whatever Sir rebuttal, depending, I guess, somewhat on their decision. So we should finish testimony next week.
I can't imagine we wouldn't.
Absent some surprises.
We have to decide on the Bennett thing.
Oh, I'm prepared. We can do that on Monday, but unless if you have anything new you want to add to that.
No, but I just wanted you to, understand that was still on the table.
I understand that's on the table.
Whatever you decide is fine.
Okay. So I want to be able to tell the jurors that. The issue we'll then have to deal with, and there's no way to know right now, and I know the jurors have inquired, and I don't have any problem discussing it in general terms with them. We would normally then probably spend 1 or 2 days going over jury instructions. It depends. It can't take more than that. It's just a matter of it takes less. It could be much shorter than that. We would be prepared to move forward to final argument, and then we have the issue of Ms. Kinney-Bott. Now, I understand from what you've told me, without getting into any amount of great detail, she is suffering from some kind of serious virus that is yet not fully diagnosed.
You're correct, yes.
And her availability for argument at this time is unknown, and at what time is unknown.
Correct.
Okay. When do you think you might have some further medical information?
I will have medical information for you tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll have, but I don't think that's really the question you're asking.
Well, I'm trying to sort of when will we have hopefully a prognosis? And obviously we all want it to be that she will be able to return in a reasonable time to argue part of the case.
Right. Of course, we all want her back, and I think we all are on the same page in that regard. I would guess that we will have a definitive answer on that by next week.
Okay.
And the only reason I can't do any better than saying next week as opposed to a particular day is because I aim to ferry her to the doctor tomorrow.
I know the doctor wants to see her again on Monday for further testing. I think after that I'll be in a position where I can inform Mr. Jackson, Mr. Dixon, as well as yourself as to where we are, because obviously, as you know, the doctor is my doctor, so I'll speak with him. I'll try and get it pinpointed as much as I can, and of course, depending on how she feels. So I think by next week.
Okay. The reason it's so important in timing is if there's a reasonable prognosis that she can be back in a reasonable amount of time, we'll have to look at what that time is as to whether to defer argument to that date. If, unfortunately, she's not going to be able to return either at all or in a reasonable amount of time, then we have to move forward from that. I've had informal discussions with counsel indicating what I think the law is in that regard, but I'm going to wait until we reach that point before we have to discuss it further. I'm going to talk, first of all, I know the press was present outside Mr. Spector's home, obviously with the exception of Ms. Deutsch, who was inside and was able to go everywhere that the jurors went. She had full access, the same as the jurors did, and I believe was able to report back to the media on that, but that's led to some other issues that I want to talk about. Let me first of all, I think it's important, a jury view is never an easy thing, and this one took a lot of planning, and I think that we have to thank Sergeant Wheatcroft and Deputy Koblenz and all of the people from the Judicial Services Unit of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. They did a terrific job, and also the Alhambra PD for their help and assistance in dealing with the streets and other matters. It really went very smoothly and very quickly, at least in my estimation, and I've done these before. So I want to make sure those individuals are thanked. There are some issues during the jury view. I gave the jurors an opportunity to get together, and after they all went through the view, to go ahead and see if they had any things that they wanted to see that for some reason they hadn't been able to, and then counsel and I discussed whether it was appropriate.
Did we get Linda back?
They gave us a list of 10 things. I wrote on it are some notes that I made in answering their questions and discussing it with counsel. Some they were allowed, some they were not. The list will be filed along with my handwritten notes because I hadn't considered it at the time, but we'll go ahead and file that.
Making her return. She's been sick, they've been saying.
That's what happened as far as that goes. Now, there is another issue that we have to deal with. I'm probably going to regret getting into this, but I really do feel an obligation to do so. Because of it's what I believe, and I think it's appropriate, I have made sure in this case, as I try to do in all my cases, that the press have the widest access that they could possibly have within legal bounds to this trial. I'm a firm believer in complete openness and transparency in covering a case. I think it's important.
Best judge,
And I
right?
try to do, and my staff tries to do all they can to assist the press in that regards and to allow cameras into the courtroom, which we have done. Something happened that I am not very happy about, and I feel the need to just...
Judge Judge Dowhard is about to let somebody know about something. Oh, shit.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Go on the record as to what happened and how it happened, and then I'm going to go past that. After I made my ruling the other day that the press would be allowed one pool reporter to accompany us to the jury view, and I want to go by this bit by bit because I think it's very important.
Oh, shit. Something happened at the jury view. Some reporter crossed a line here.
Before I made that ruling, I briefly discussed it with counsel. There had been briefs filed on behalf of the media, which I read and considered, and then taking a look at the law, very little of which was directly applicable to our situation. I ruled that it was appropriate because I believe it's important to have the press present when we do anything, as long as it's legally allowed, that at least one member of the press be able to accompany us on the jury view to watch what we did and how it was done, and that was done. At the time when I made my ruling, Mr. Rosen opined that Linda Deutsch would be a good choice. I think the people said that's fine with them, and since I've known Ms. Deutsch for some 30-some years, I agreed to that. We said the press will pick the reporter, and that was left up to them because I don't believe it's appropriate for the court or the attorneys or anyone else to tell the press which member will accompany them. And this is where this problem arose. My understanding is what happened after that, and I get this information through our public information officer, obviously I wasn't there, is the press had a meeting. There probably was not great joy that I only allowed one reporter, but that's the way it goes. I had to balance property rights of Mr. Spector against the rights of the press and the rights of the public, and I did so in the way that I thought was legally appropriate by allowing one person on the property. And I understand the press wasn't too happy with that, and that's fine. We don't have to agree with those things. And at that meeting, I understand it was perhaps by secret ballot, but whatever, Ms. Deutsch was selected as the representative. That was the press's decision who to select. Mr. Perricchini reported to me that could I perhaps reconsider my ruling? Could there be more than one reporter, especially the Times is the largest newspaper in the Los Angeles area, and they would like to have a reporter present. What I told Mr. Perricchini was my ruling stood, but, and this is where no good deed goes unpunished, and that's exactly what happened, that I would ask the defense if they had any objection to perhaps one or two further reporters to go along. I didn't have any problem with it. At the time, I didn't foresee a problem, but I would ask, and that's all it was. I had already made my ruling. The ruling was done. I passed it along to the lawyers the other day. The defense did not wish to go along with that. The reasons are unimportant, although they did indicate their reasons for doing so. It made no difference. Once they said no, they're not making the decision. The ruling had already been made. I voluntarily said, do you want to modify my ruling? Do you have a problem? Yes. That's the end of the story. Well, apparently, because of the reasons given, this didn't sit well with at least certain members of the press, and up to that point, we're still fine. But because of the reasons given, apparently, at least one member of the press confronted Mr. Rosen yesterday, said some rude remarks to him, and I think that's inappropriate. That is not the way, in my mind, that these matters should proceed. I do not want the attorneys in this case to have to worry about confrontations outside the courtroom with reporters. It's inappropriate. That's my view. My concern is getting this case tried and getting it to the jury, and I don't need any unnecessary distractions. If you're happy with my ruling, fine. If you're not happy with my ruling, fine. The decision was mine and mine alone. There has been some speculation that somehow Mr. Spector's wishes influenced my ruling. The ruling had already been made. As I say, I tried to do somebody a favor, and this is what we get for it. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to move along. I hope if anybody else wants to say anything, that's fine. If not, we move forward. Mr. Rosen, do you want to say anything?
I don't think so, Your Honor.
Okay.
The court's covered it well.
People with
No,
beard?
thank you.
Okay. We will move forward. Now, at the scene, one thing I want to do with the jurors before they go home, juror number 4, when he was at the scene, he came up immediately to one of the bailiffs, I believe one of the security personnel, deputy sheriff who was there, he thought he recognized. So we will do what we do every time there is an incident when a juror, and they've been great about it, reports to us that they think they may have seen something that may be a problem. I will make the inquiry of whether, having seen someone he recognizes, he thinks that's a problem. I believe I know what the answer will be, but you never know, so we'll make that inquiry, and if anybody wants to follow up with that, that's fine as well. Do we have anything else we need to do with the jury, or frankly, that we need to do today?
We thought, since they're here and we're all here, Mr. Plourde and I, or Mr. Rosen and I could agree on a stipulation that deals with the lease for Ms. Clarkson. Yes. That's a simple matter, and I'll just read the stipulation in and mark one piece of documentation.
There's also a legal issue that has arisen this morning that will need some time, but not with the jury.
Okay, that's fine.
That's Rosen's just general demeanor.
Mr. Rosen, there were some things you wanted to make sure that the jurors understood about the scene. I'm trying to remember. I said, go ahead and make the record.
I was going to wait. It had to do with the fact that the radio, the stereo, was playing at the time that entry was made that morning. And our position is that should have been played at the scene. I requested that. The court turned me down on that. I wanted to make a record that because of what I observed at the scene regarding how certain jurors paid particular attention to certain portions of the location and things that may or may not have been important to some and not to others. But I think one of the issues in this case certainly will be, in closing arguments, to address the question of audibility at the location. And so what we're going to ask is this: since the view has taken place and we're now on the other side of that, the defense is going to ask the court to inform the jurors today that at the time that entry was made that morning, the stereo was in fact playing, but we were unable to play it today because we were unable to determine the volume, how high the volume was, how moderate it was, or how low it was. But at that time, music was playing. And that would be in lieu of the request that we made at the scene, which the court turned us down on. That's all.
Okay, I'll hear from the people now.
We have a slightly different take on that. Our understanding is that the only testimony in the record is that when Detective Tomlin arrived, which was some hours after the initial entry by the Alhambra Police Department, and that was 40 minutes or so after the initial call, 911 call. At that time, when Detective Tomlin arrived, there was some music going on. But we have no testimony as to what was going on at the time of the entry by Alhambra. I don't believe we do.
Them big, like, everyone's wearing baggy suits and shit again now, even like pants and stuff. Like, am I crazy?
Nor at the time that the shooting took place. And so I think what Mr. Rosen suggests would be inappropriate. Because we just don't know. I mean, what we were trying to do is talk about what happened at the time of the shooting, and then Mr. D'Souza making his comments to the defendant. We don't know what was going on there or what level was going on. It's calling really for a lot of speculation.
Okay.
Our understanding is that nobody knew how to turn the music off, and it was on actually when people arrived after it was turned over to the defense team the following evening. So maybe we're in a position where we just have to evidence that, but I think it would be the level is really the concern. Does anybody remember the level and so forth?
Yeah, the point I think that's important is just so they can factor in the facts that at that time there was music playing, what weight they decide to assign to it, because it is in evidence. I think it was Detective Lowenfeld. I could be wrong on this, but my recollection is that he did indicate it was on. And obviously, there's been no testimony that any of the law enforcement personnel that were there that morning flipped it on or turned it on. And as I understand it, and I remember, I think Mr. Plourde is correct in his recollection, that in fact they were unable to turn it off. They couldn't turn it off, and it kept going on, even to the point where when Mr. Shapiro and the other members of the defense team at that time entered the residence on the following day, and I think the evidence is sometime around 5 in the afternoon, it was still on. So again, we can't address the volume, but just the fact that it was on is something that we feel is important
to factor in, because otherwise it could be very misleading in the sense that they're there, they don't hear the music being played, which of course would
contributed to the possibility of not understanding, maybe understanding, who knows. But it certainly would camouflage some of the discussions which have been addressed by witnesses in this case. So that's all we're asking for.
Well, my feeling is, thank you, is that if you want to get into evidence that when the detectives went out there, the radio was on, you get that if you don't have it in testimony, and I don't know whether or not Detective Lillingfield or anybody else testified to that, you call Detective Tomlin or whoever else you want in your case before you rest, and get the evidence in that when they arrived, the radio was on. It's inappropriate for me to take any other notice of it or to do anything. One of the things that the jurors were not allowed, and I'll go over some of the things after they finished their view. Some of the jurors wanted to sit in the chair that has now replaced the chair that Ms. Clarkson was in. They were allowed to do that. There was a window that was open that I believe they wanted closed, or vice versa, that was at the top of the landing. Some of the jurors wanted to get into the car, and we no longer have the Mercedes. That's either been traded in or sold. That was the car in question on the night Ms. Clarkson died. The sheriffs got one of their plainclothes cars that they positioned in pretty much the space where Mr. D'Souza recreated the incident, which was testified to in photograph. They wanted to get into the car, turn on the air conditioning and the radio. That was not allowed because we don't know what the volume was. We don't know.
They will argue about anything in this case, Jesus Christ.
What the air conditioning was, whether it's the same in air conditioning units. Some are quiet, some are noisy. It depends upon the car and the make, and we didn't have the same make car. So that request was denied. They wanted to close the door and have conversations to see what could be heard. We don't know how loud the voices were, so we didn't allow that because we wouldn't have had the same situation. There was another incident where they wanted to do something, I can't remember, along the same lines, testing volume, which we can't recreate, and I view this, I can't, turn on a radio or not turn on a radio where we don't know what the volume was, but if you want to get to the fact that at the time certain people were there, the radio was on, the way to do that is call witnesses. So that's my view as to that. It's certainly appropriate for you to do so, but do it that way would be the best way. I don't know that we have, is there any other issues we need to deal with?
I think that's it.
After we get through with the jurors I'm talking to. Okay.
I almost forgot.
I know, you won't. All right. We ready for the jurors?
Yes, sir.
I'll do juror number 4 with the other jurors. I think that can probably move pretty quickly, and given the nature, we'll do it with all the jurors in the box. All right, the record will reflect that the jurors and alternates, all 18 of them are present, which means we had a successful field trip to the
So this is them coming back from the field trip after having a
extent that
little
we lost no
argument
jurors,
about
which is
some
good. I have a lot of paperwork I have to fill out if any of you turn up missing. It's hardly worth the effort.
Yeah, I'm real confused about
Just kidding. Just kidding. I've struck a mortal blow. Okay. Just one thing. Juror number 4, when you were at the scene, it's my understanding you thought you might have recognized one of the sheriff's personnel that was there?
Yes.
Does that...
Married to my cousin.
Married to a cousin. Okay, so it's a cousin-in-law. Will that cause you any problems? And I want you to tell us, do you think it might cause you to favor one side or the other?
Not at all. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Okay. Based on that, does anybody want to make any further inquiry?
Then why would you even say anything?
I just want to know if the wedding was nice.
Okay.
Jesus.
It doesn't sound like it'll be much of a problem. I know that Wendy has briefly discussed with you some scheduling. I just want to go over what I know and to give you a heads up.
You could use that to maybe get out of this. I thought, oh, is that what's happening? No. He just, well, what?
Make some plans. It looks like we will finish. We are not going to have any testimony this afternoon. The defense will complete its case early next week. There will be some rebuttal from the people. There may be some further rebuttal from the defense. It all depends on who testifies. But right now, we believe that the testimony will conclude next week. Now, after that, the court will take a day or two. This is where it gets somewhat murky. We would take a day or two to go over jury instructions. You won't be present when we're doing that, so you'll have some time off the week after that. Normally, we would go directly to final argument, which would probably take about 2 days to complete. However, as you are well aware,
see if I can get used to them a little bit.
Miss Kenny Bodden hasn't been present. She is suffering from some undiagnosed virus. She is
undiagnosed virus.
on doctor's orders in bed. She, at this point, is not
terrible.
ready to come back
Somebody
to the
asked
case.
Linda what she was sick from.
And we will have to see what the prognosis is, which we hope to learn next week, which then factors in as to when argument will begin. Normally, it would begin right after jury instructions, but it may not. I don't know. I have to find out if she's coming back.
Somebody asked
And
Linda
if
what she
she's
was
coming
sick
back,
from.
what the estimate of time is, and that will lead me to some other decisions I have to make that right now I'm not prepared to confront because they're not in front of me as to how much time the defense may need to prepare and some other matters. So frankly, we don't know what's going to happen at this point. I'll know more next week, and as soon as I know, you'll know. I know that some of you had indicated sort of a preference to take some time off because we're now coming up, I believe, next week. At the end of next week, we will have arrived at the 4-month mark, which is what we told you was sort of the outside of where
Happy
we were
Sunday.
going. Obviously, we're going a little bit beyond
man, I hate
that,
to hear
but
a
if you
rough 2
factor in the
weeks.
fact that Mr. Cutler was sick for a while, we're sort of on schedule. But I know some of you have indicated your children are home
doing
from
okay?
school, and before they go back from their summer vacation, you'd like to spend some time with them. Originally, I was going to say no, although I've given you pretty much everything else you've asked for. Sometimes you do have to say no. It may be now that we'll be able to do that. I don't know. I'm going to just sort of give you, these are all possibilities. I'll know more next week. And when I know, you'll know. With that in mind, I think we have a stipulation, however, the council are prepared to enter into.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Just a bit of housekeeping. I'll mark for People's next in order. People's 185, I believe.
You may be beyond that. Let me double check. Nope, you're right. 185 is your next exhibit.
People's 185 is a 8.5 by 11 document, front and back, purporting to be a rental agreement and/or lease for the property of 3005 Grand Canal in Venice, signed on the date 9/23/99 for a rental agreement to begin on October 1st, 1999. And it'll be related to the following stipulation, and I'll address this to Mr. Plord. Mr. Plord, as Mr. Spector's representative, do you stipulate that Ms. Julie Jungwirth, and that last name, Cindy, is spelled Jungwirth, be deemed to have been called, duly sworn, and to have testified to the following facts? Number one, that she owned the property at 3005 Grand Canal, Venice, California, on February 3rd, 2003. That she was the landlord of Miss Lana Clarkson, and that she entered into the attached rental agreement or lease agreement for the above property with Miss Clarkson on October 1st, 1999. That this lease was in effect on a month-to-month basis on February 3rd, 2003. That during the course of this lease agreement between Miss Clarkson and Miss Jungwirth, Miss Clarkson was a responsible tenant who properly maintained the premises. That the terms of the lease expressed the owner's intention to sell or rebuild the property, and that if such intention were exercised after January of 2000, Ms. Clarkson would be given a 30-day notice to vacate. That there was a verbal agreement between the parties that due to the nature of the entertainment industry, Ms. Clarkson may from time to time be late with rent payments. That Ms. Clarkson was responsible for communicating to the landlord about any late payment, and that Ms. Clarkson and that Ms. Clarkson always paid the $50 late fee. That at the time of the death of Ms. Clarkson on February 3rd, 2003, she only owed $130 in rent and late fees to the landlord, Ms. Jungwirth, and had communicated by letter about her intention to make payment. And finally, that at no time during the tenancy of Ms. Clarkson did Ms. Jungwirth or any agent of Ms. Jungwirth ever issue an eviction notice or threaten Ms. Clarkson with eviction pursuant to the terms of the lease.
Agreed. So stipulated, and ladies and gentlemen, that stipulation is accepted by both sides, and it is now before you as a proven fact, and you will accept that as a fact that has been proven to you. Anything else before the jurors are released?
Not for the people, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Keep in mind the admonition, and we will see you 9:30 on Monday morning. Thank you very much. All right, the jurors and the alternates have left. You said you had a legal issue?
Yes, Your Honor. Basically, what I'm going to lead up to, what this will lead up to, is I'm going to ask the court to order that we conduct a conditional examination on Monday afternoon. I have a witness, Mr. Mark Hirschfield, who's an executive for NBC, who is in town as of this morning, but is leaving Wednesday and is unavailable Tuesday. His testimony is very critical to an issue that arose yesterday and that I just was able to get the information on this morning. I need to make a written application. I can make a generalized offer of proof at this point, and then since there's a requirement of 3 days notice, go back to my office and prepare a declaration and send it in this afternoon. Or I can tell you on the record what...
Why don't you tell me where you're going and we'll see what happens.
All right. Yesterday I received a letter purportedly written to Lana Clarkson by Mark Hirschfeld. The letter was extolling that videotape and what a great actress she was and so forth. There were some anomalies in the letter, and I don't know if you recall, I was running in and out of the courtroom yesterday afternoon. I was able to reach Mr. Hirschfeld in New York. I read in the letter, he said, I didn't write that letter, but he wanted to see the letter to be sure. I faxed it over to his office. He reviewed it this morning. It's not on his letterhead. It has several factual errors. For example, Ms. Clarkson purportedly, the letter purportedly said that Mr. Hirschfeld was responsible for casting Ms. Clarkson into a play or into a series, Three's Company. Said he never cast her and that he had nothing to do with the casting of that particular play. There were mistakes in attributions of titles. It was filled with errors. The signature wasn't his. The title beneath the signature, his purported title, was not correct. I asked him when he would be available to testify, and my understanding was we were going to do Deborah Rebuttal today and perhaps Donna Clarkson, who was the conduit that these letters, this letter and a couple other similarly suspicious letters were provided to us, would be testifying this afternoon. So I caused a subpoena to be issued to him for appearance here Monday afternoon. In the meantime, the schedule changed, and so he won't be back once he leaves on the 15th until the 25th, and it appears that it's highly likely we'll be done by then. So I therefore am requesting to have the court designate itself a magistrate and conduct this conditional examination. My direct examination won't take much longer than what I've just taken to describe to you.
Why is this a conditional exam? I guess perhaps there's something I'm overlooking.
At this moment, the prosecution hasn't offered the letters, and I believe that they're not going to offer them. Well, I would be very surprised now that I've revealed what I found out, that they would offer them. And so in the natural order of proof, we won't get to him until, well, theoretically we could put him on Monday afternoon, but we have to, they have to finish their case, we have to finish our case, and this would really have been a rebuttal. It now looks like we could put Miss Donna Clarkson on to establish that these letters came from her daughter, that they were purported by her daughter to be real, and that she passed them on to the people, believing them to be real. And I think the court had indicated that they seem to be probative on state of mind of Ms. Clarkson. So, I mean, if we can call those people out of order and put them on, we can do that. It doesn't have to be a conditional examination. However, if we can't, then I need to preserve his testimony.
Now I understand.
Gary, could we have the 3 letters marked as an exhibit?
Sure.
We gave them to the court. We got them from the people on Monday.
All right, your next exhibit would be, we'll mark them collectively as F11, 3 pages, 3 letters collectively, F11.
And you have those in your possession?
I do, I'll mark them. All right, let me hear from the people.
Your Honor, I guess the first point, the first hurdle to get past before we start getting into conditional examinations and Donna Clarkson, et cetera, is the kind of the last point that Mr. Brunon made, that this is relevant to Lana Clarkson's state of mind.
No, I think what he was saying, and if I misunderstood, please let me know, that if you put in these letters to show that Ms. Clarkson, was upbeat, she felt good about the tape, that, she could look forward to work, they're now prepared to put in evidence that says she knew that's not true because the letters weren't true and she knew they weren't true.
Right, and that's the if. We're not putting the letters in.
Okay.
We have no intention to, so unless we put the letters in or put the letters on, that's when it would become relevant, I would agree. But we're not introducing the letters, we're not going to seek to introduce the letters, so it's not relevant.
Okay.
Your Honor, we were just advised by Mr. Ocampo that they may not put on these letters just a few moments.
Well, now you have an
Now we have it on the record, which is very consistent. And something was said that they've apparently done some investigation to determine maybe the letters weren't what they purported to be. That's exactly what we were finding out too. Consistency in that regard. We're asking for that information, and they promised to give it to us. They're just finding out, just like we are. But we feel that the letters now have an affirmative proof regarding issues, even if they don't put them on.
So then call your witness, and it's not a conditional exam. You just call them as part of your.
Okay, we'll just put them on out of order, and we'll do it on Monday afternoon. Even
if we'll have whatever objections, if any are made as to whether it shows anything or shows state of mind or whatnot, and I'll rule on it.
Your Honor, I was going to ask the court to order Miss Donna Clarkson to come back to court on Monday, but I think this is the first session they've missed.
Well, I think that people can get her for you if you want.
Sure.
That's not going to be a problem.
If it was represented that she gave those to one of the members of the DA's office on Monday, they immediately gave them to us.
In any event, since it's now no longer an issue of a conditional exam, he's going to be in town. You call him as a witness, and we'll take it from there.
I'll have him here Monday.
Okay, Wendy, here's the.
And obviously this is with the understanding that there's still a lot of legal hurdles that I think have to be. You're just talking about procedurally get the witnesses here, but
that's all I'm dealing with.
Okay.
There was a time constraint because of the requirements for a conditional exam, and now those no longer exist, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, but we didn't want this witness travels a lot.
He's not going to travel for but the bottom line is we'll deal with it when he's in town, and he'll either testify or he won't.
He'll be here Monday afternoon.
Okay.
Your Honor, yesterday you asked us to give a complete list of all our case in chief witnesses, and then the people were to do the same, and we've been given, except for the pathologist, we just want to know if there's any other witnesses that we haven't been told about, just so we can get our planning done. And okay.
Mr. Jackson has indicated no.
Very good.
So everybody
shaking the head.
Everything is on the table.
Okay.
Subject to change.
How well said.
As long as we're here, if you want to deal with the Bennett issue, I'm prepared to deal. Let me tell you where we're at, because you may have a better memory than I do, and there may be other statements that I haven't factored in. The people wanted to introduce statements of pumpkin pie, Miss Lawfridge. I have a tough time with this. That she made to investigator Bennett that were alleged to be consistent.
Excuse me, Your Honor, you said the people, the defense.
The defense wants to bring in. Sorry if I said the people. During her testimony, it was brought out by her testimony that when she was initially interviewed by the police, she never said anything about Ms. Clarkson being depressed or having any problems. Then at some point that changed. She spoke to, and she was initially interviewed in 2003. She then was interviewed, I think, Mr. Bennett, you told me it was 2005?
April 2005.
Okay.
Or May 2005.
All right. And then you wanted to get that statement where she talks about the depression in as a prior consistent statement.
Now, there's two parts.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. There's two parts. The first part is the quote in the Bennett report, the quote of Ms. Laughlin regarding what Lana Clarkson said to her after she indicated in her testimony that she had been dissed, I don't know how you do that, by Michael Bay at the Franklin party. The other part of it is on the next page of the Bennett report. There is a small paragraph with information related by Ms. Laughlin to Mr. Bennett regarding the phone call that she had with Ms. Clarkson. I think you have the report which I provided you. I think it was within 3 days or 2 days of her demise. So it's two parts. It's the phone call within a few days, and it's the quote by Ms. Clarkson to Ms. Laughlin, which is related to Mr. Bennett in the April or May 05 interview.
Okay. Well, and you want to get those in as prior consistent statements.
They're either prior consistent or prior inconsistent, but I believe they're prior consistent. That's what I
Okay,
believe.
well, let's look at Evidence Code Section 791 and 1236 to see whether they qualify. There's two parts to 791, and 1236 just references 791. Evidence of a statement made by him or her that is inconsistent with any part of his or her testimony at the hearing has been admitted for the purpose of attacking his credibility. Well, we know that that's been done. Certainly the people attacked her credibility. And the statement was made before the alleged inconsistent statement. Well, that didn't happen. The alleged inconsistent statement was her original interview in 2003, which she was confronted with. You never told anybody
Absolute
that.
cringe.
So the statement to be before that would have had to have been prior to 2003. It's not. So it doesn't qualify under Category A. Then you have Category B. An express or implied charge has been made that his or her, I'm obviously paraphrasing, testimony at the hearing is recently fabricated or is influenced by bias or other improper motive, which I agree that that part of that section has been established. Clearly the people attacked her credibility, both impliedly and expressly, and alleged bias and other improper motives. But the latter part of Section B, and the statement was made before the bias, motive for fabrication or other improper motive is alleged to have arisen. And the question, as I remember the testimony and the people's cross-examination, that basically prior to the statement to Bennett was not made before the bias. I think, as I remember the cross, that the bias arose shortly thereafter. The family, she was on the outs with the family. She felt marginalized, I believe was the actual testimony. And that's when it all arose. That's when so clearly all these statements are not before, they're afterwards, so they don't qualify as prior.
But Judge, you're making a factual determination of what the bias is and when it arose.
Well, that's what but the bottom line is it requires me to look at what the possible biases and motives are. That's what I'm required to do by the section.
No, I understand that, but I think that is a threshold level, that once the threshold is reached, I mean, the question is, could the bias have arisen then? Could it have arisen over time as she testified when the urgency or the urge to have the truth come out, is that when the bias arose? Or is there some other reason that she has a bias toward one side or another? I mean, this is something that it seems to me that the jury should get all of these facts and then be instructed in an instruction similar to the foundational facts under 1235 and 1236. Let them make a decision whether or not she was biased.
That doesn't appear to me to be the law. I think it's my obligation. These are foundational facts that I have to make before the testimony gets to the jury.
Well,
if you have something that says that this should be the basis of a jury instruction as opposed to my requirement, that's when you said it seems that you're making a finding. The code section requires me to make a finding.
I understand that, but it's certainly a preliminary finding that there is at least a colorable issue there. But the fact is that she made this statement to Mr. Bennett long before she ever was contacted and made a statement to the defense. So, but the jury doesn't know that at this point. The jury doesn't know that she made that.
Jen gonna get on that thing. Oh shit! Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that, Jersey Jen. I hope you feel better, man. Hate that you're going through some personal stuff right now. But let me get you on this thing. I really appreciate that. And who got membered up? Who has the opportunity to now join the weekly book club? Who is it? Leslie and Billy. Boom! Welcome in here, guys. Thank you so much. And again, Jersey Jen. Welcome to the party. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for hanging out this morning. It's been a great morning.
That statement that's consistent with her testimony before she was contacted by our investigators, or at least in a meaningful way. And so now both implied and express accusation that only after the defense contacted her and she decided she had this improper bias the other way. At that point, she made the statement that was consistent with her trial testimony. It just strikes me that given the amount of evidence that's questionable as to its foundation, let's just say that, but it's been offered by both sides. I'm not saying that it's predominantly one side or another, that this little set of facts ought to be considered by them as well.
Okay.
Then get on that replay.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
Just for the record, As the court knows, I spent a lot of hours going through Ms. Laughlin's testimony. I'd like to just put in the record those citations that we are basing, at least in part, our argument.
Just so the court will know where, if this ever gets looked at by...
You know what, I can probably do it quicker than you can.
Go for it.
Pages 73, 78, line 19 through 73, 81, line 14, 73, 81, line 27 through 73, 82, line 16, 73, 87, line 19 through 73, 88, line 18? 15. 73, 89, line 4, 74, 69, line 3, lines 3 through 13, and 7503, line 5 through 7506 through line 20.
I gave you my best answer.
Thank you. Those are the lines. People wish to be heard, because
Your Honor, we've discussed this before. Our position is the same, that these statements by Detective Bennett, or by Pumpkin Pie to Detective Bennett, have to precede the statement to Detective Tomlin to be a prior consistent statement, or, as the court pointed out, precede the motive that Pumpkin Pie testified about the family that was happened shortly after Ms. Clarkson's death. So I just don't think it meets the evidence code requirements, and I do think the court has the obligation to make these foundational determinations.
Okay, I'll make a final ruling, sometime on Monday. I want to think about it tomorrow and over the weekend, but that's my preliminary ruling, and if something changes, I'll let you know.
May I just put a final footnote? I just want the court, and I'm sure since you've cited the pages in the transcript, you're familiar with it, but Ms. Pye never said that she developed a bias as a result of those. She said that didn't bother her.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, and then I'll let everybody argue this out. Go ahead.
No, this is a mechanical.
Go ahead, then to Mr. Brunon's reply, Mr. Jackson wanted to say something.
Your Honor, what we're forgetting about is Mr. Brunon's argument is basically, you know what, let's just let the jurors figure it out. We can't.
Well, I've rejected that argument.
Good. I was going to say the formal objection obviously is hearsay.
True.
This is rank hearsay, and there has to be a very specific, narrowly tailored exception to the hearsay rule, and 791 expresses that narrowly tailored exception. And unless the statement precedes, and I think Mr. Brunon may have stated the other day that the statement need only precede the testimony in court. That is clearly not what the case law says. That's not how the legislature intended it. The statement merely needs to precede the motive, or the date, or the possible date of when the motive is expressed, and she indicated that she did feel marginalized and slighted and ousted and exiled within the days and weeks following Lana Clarkson's murder, or it needs to precede the first statement, and it does neither of those. I mean, this is a very, very clear issue on hearsay grounds. It's not admissible.
Thank you. Okay.
This is a different issue.
No,
as soon as they're done.
Mr. Rosen.
We all get our 2 cents. I was just saying, if the court decides to permit it, then I would just ask of Mr. Jackson and Mr. Dixon that I know that Mr. Bennett sometimes is not available. He's out and about because when we had him in the hallway.
If I decide to admit it, we'll make him available.
Okay.
We'll find a way or just stipulate to it. Okay. Now, Mr. Clark.
Yeah, I've given notice, since I'm doing all the, notice of witnesses and discovery to the people, I've given notice of at least a couple of rebuttal witnesses, of which will come later on. But the two that I've given notice of are professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists type people that had contact with Ms. Clarkson. And I've notified Mr. Ocampo that we've discussed issues of maybe there's going to be a claim of some type of psychotherapist privilege. They haven't made that. I'm not sure who the holder of the privilege is. I believe it would be the estate of Ms. Clarkson, but there was some notion, is there a privilege? And we debated that informally. My point is that if we're going to get into that, we should get the court involved, get some briefing done, so that we don't end up at the rebuttal stage with these witnesses, and then we get into this big brouhaha about privilege and so forth. And so I wanted to alert that to the court and see if there's really going to be a claim.
that this weekend goes the same as all the other ones before it?
Certainly, Your Honor. And so I don't know if there's really going to be a claim of privilege, but if there is, let's get it moving, and we'll decide. Then the court eventually decides it one way or the other, as the court does all the issues, and that way. But I don't want there to be a delay, especially when we're getting to the tail end.
No, okay.
Mr. Plord says it best, and I'd get hacking on the keyboard if I were Mr. Plord. There probably will be a claim of privilege. I can, in my informal conversations with
probably there's stuff he has to do beyond
the
this
family,
case.
would certainly suggest that. So if Mr. Plord is the proponent of the evidence, he needs to establish its relevance and that there is no privilege.
Can you give me at this point a very concise offer of proof as to who might testify as to what, so I can start to research the issue?
Yeah, I can. These are, one is a psychologist. I could give the name, but I prefer not to do that.
Let's not do that.
Basically, a psychologist and I believe a psychiatrist. One of them is documented in her day planner where some type of therapy was done and the subjects were discussed, and that's in her day planner at certain pages and so forth. She's under subpoena. I'm not sure what her licensure is. She's some type of professional therapist. I want to say she's a psychiatrist, but I'm not sure. The other one is definitely a clinical psychologist that treats people for various things, including addictions and so forth. And we found out about her just recently because her name was mentioned in one of the new emails that we just received that came in this last wave of about many thousands of emails or hundreds of pages of emails. So we contacted her, subpoenaed her to court next week. We've got her on call. We've got a report from her, very limited information because of this privilege issue, but we have information to the point where we know that there was contact between Lana Clarkson and this psychologist regarding, the type of work that she does. Basically, it's the psychotherapist type privilege. I forget the section number, but it's like if I go to you and I want to discuss my problems and you're a psychologist, that's the privilege we're
You're welcome to come into chambers and discuss your problems. Let's just give notice to the people.
You do have that couch available, don't you?
Yeah. And anybody else out there, I'm available.
The doctor is in?
Yes.
In any event, Your Honor, that's what we're dealing with. I think that's pretty straightforward. I think the courts run into that issue once in a while.
That'll help me. I can get started on it.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Rosen.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
I have a couple of issues. In anticipation that we were going to see Ms. Rebuttal this afternoon, I lost a lot of sleep last night and this morning, but that's part of the job in terms of preparing for her. In the course of preparing for her, there's two things that have come up, and I addressed them informally, both with Mr. Jackson and Mr. Dixon. In part of the discovery, there is an area where she talks about, she's not able to identify the exact time, but she talks about the quote-unquote Kessel boys or the Kessel brothers. She going to her car, driving. She had somebody in the vehicle with her. She had a little sports car, and she looks over, and depending which version you take, and there are some discrepancies in the versions, she either sees a pink Cadillac, which probably would be a very memorable thing to remember, or a black Cadillac, and she describes the two Kessel brothers being in them, one driving and
I can shortcut this.
Please do. Not that I'm going to cut Mr. Rosen off, but go ahead.
I've talked with Ms. Robitaille. She told me this whole chase incident with the Kessel brothers. I won't elaborate anymore. And I told her it's really interesting talking about, but I don't think that it's admissible in court, and I'm not going to ask you that.
Thank you.
You're not paying that you didn't get the rule, are you?
No, it's okay. I'll suffer with it, but I'll get over it.
But the general subject of the Kessel brothers and their relationship to Mr. Spector is a different thing.
It was this particular.
This is different.
Okay.
This is different. And then the other one is in terms of looking at the time frame on this, and I know the court's rule, this is, I guess you could say it's in the nature of at least a portion of requesting for reconsideration by the court on this. I anticipate, I don't know, I assume Mr. Dixon's going to present the direct on this, and if he is, there's really two areas that I believe he's going to delve into. There was an alleged incident that occurs in the 80s after Ms. Robitaille returns from spending 6, 7, 8 years back in the UK. She comes back here, and then she recontacts Mr. Spector. And I guess that one will have a direct and we'll have a cross, and we'll see where it comes out. But the other incident, which I really didn't focus on when both Mr. Brunon and myself argued about the admissibility of this long ago and far away when the court heard it and ruled that Ms. Robitaille would be allowed in under 1101B like the other witnesses, was this. The first incident, as best as I can glean from reading a number of different interviews, is that it occurred in the early 70s. And certainly from today, that's in excess of 35 years. And if we back it up 4 years to the year 2003, it's certainly at least having its third decade anniversary. So what I'm going to ask the court to do is to reconsider its ruling and limit the people to allowing them to put on the evidence of the alleged 1980s gun incident, but not to be allowed to put on the early 70s gun incident because it's just so remote in time. It really goes back even further than any of the other 1101Bs, which I think the earliest one, if I remember right, starts in 83 or 84, and it's at a time when, I mean, let's face it, as we go through life, we all become different people, and that was at a time when Mr. Spector was in his 30s, and he's now in his mid-60s, approaching 70. So I'm going to ask the court to revisit just that part of it. I'm not asking the court to exclude the 80s incident. The court's ruled, and I accept the ruling on that. But when I read it last night and into the early morning hours, and then this morning I got up early and read it again, it just struck me that it's really very, very remote in time. So I'm going to ask the court to reconsider its ruling on just that portion.
Thank you. Mr.
Your Honor, you did consider both these incidents and rule on them. It is about 6 years before the one that Mr. Rosen concedes. It matches almost identical to the early 80s incident. It was at a time when Ms. Robitaille was in the employment of the defendant. She was working for Warner Spector Records. Her relationship had evolved from employee to employee, close friend, and then to a romantic relationship. It's what we've heard of so many times. She's at a party. Part of her responsibilities are to not only go to the party and kind of make sure everybody's there, play the piano a little bit, but also socialize and assist Mr. Spector. At the time they were having a romantic relationship, as she says in her English accent, I was the last man standing at the party. I asked to go. I said I wanted to go. The door was locked. The next thing I know, there's a gun pointed in my face, screaming and yelling, you aren't going to go, I'm going to blow your blankety-blank head off. Eventually, well, and she will say, and I'll be candid here, that she put on her very prim British demeanor and basically dressed the defendant up and down and kind of talked him out of pointing the gun at her, and after some period of time, she was allowed to leave. That's a very brief version of it off the top of my head. It matches very closely as to what happened in the early 80s. She, at some point, left his employment, returned to England, got involved in the music business, and then came back to Los Angeles and returned to his employment and was at a party, just like the one I just described, doing kind of the same sort of thing when she tried to leave, and the same thing happened to her, including the same kind of screaming and yelling at her with a gun pointed at her head.
Well, that's the Bill Spector pattern.
Mr. Dixon's words, which I want to borrow for a moment, precisely reinforces my point to the court. He just said a moment ago, the 70s incident, the early 70s incident matches very, very closely with the 80s incident. And that's exactly why they don't need it, because it is further remote in time, much further remote in time. It's not 6 or 7 years, it's even further than that. Because I think, depending which version you take, she's either gone to the UK 6 years, 7 years, or 8 years, and the 80s incident doesn't occur immediately, it occurs sometime after she returns. So by his own words, he says it matches very, very closely with the 80s incident, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not quarreling about the 80s incident, but he gets in through the 80s incident exactly what he wants.
Okay, thank you. What I'm going to rule, I mean, I've already ruled your reconsider.
Yes.
Actually, again, and this has to do with all the 1101, or most of the 1101, or some of the 1101B witnesses, instances that on their own, if they were the only instance or only incident, might be considered remote and might be excludable, especially under 352. But what I've found, and the reason I let these incidents in, the ones that directly related to use of a weapon with an individual, the pattern. And in this case, and it's where I'll disagree with you, the fact that it's old, which certainly it is in the 70s, it actually reinforces the people's argument. It shows a continuing pattern that now goes even longer. And the fact that it's old by itself, if it was the only incident, I might agree with you, but it's not. It's part of an overall pattern that the court has found to be admissible, and therefore it will come in. All right. If there's nothing else, I'll see you Monday at 9:30. Thank you.
Hard laying it down.
Hey, motherfucker.
Let's see where we're going next week. An hour, 7 minutes. Blood splatter expert James Peck's recall to the stand. We're starting to get some of these recalls now. I remember James Plex. I don't remember a lot about him specifically. I'm sure I will be reminded pretty quickly next week. But thanks everyone for coming through. Had a great show. We had a wheel spin. A lot of new people working on getting another one ready to rock and roll, which should not be too long off. Come back through Tuesday night again. We're going to be doing something here. Maybe something Bundy oriented before we go into book club immediately after. Again, members only, Buzz Nation Book Club. I appreciate everybody that is membered up. I appreciate everyone that comes and hangs out. If you're not membered up, I appreciate everyone that does the shares. Love you guys. Thursday night, we're going to be having a show as well. And then, of course, for Friday, I'm having Miss Eat Mayhem back on here. But today, also on the second channel, Wrestle Plunge. I have a video dropping at 3:45 p.m. So in just a little over 3 hours, maybe it's 4:45, maybe a little over 4 hours from now, I've got a really interesting story about this pro wrestler that was stabbed outside of his home. He was followed by a car that accused him of cutting him off, and he was stabbed and attacked by some gentlemen. It happened in 2016. Please check that out. And then tonight at 8, I'm going to do a live stream on that channel, Wrestle Plunge. And I'm going to be watching some old CWA Memphis wrestling from 1989. I think I'm going to try to start going through that maybe every weekend, maybe every Saturday or Sunday, one or the other. See how the Sundays work here. And we'll see how it goes. I don't know. But I'm going to put a link in here right now for that stream tonight. And you can bounce off of this link and go to the channel and sub up if you'd like to. And again, check out all the videos that I've already got in there. I've got a lot of videos already laced up. Docu-style videos. I put a lot of work into those. I really hope everyone will check them out. Everyone, thank you all. I hope everyone has a good day. Bonnie, thank you for coming in and hanging out this morning into the afternoon. Appreciate it. Great. And I still need to do a wish list. I've never actually done that. Need to make an Amazon wish list. If anything, for Gypsy, right? All right, everyone, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. And check out some other stuff that's coming throughout the day. Let's go.
This verse